I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice. I mean, listen, we talking about practice. Not a game, not a game, not a game. We talking about practice. Not a game, not a game.
Me. Bam, bam. Me, man.
Not a game.
Slap that like she scored 30.
We talking about sports. I mean, what we even talking about, man? We talking about sports here.
I like big butts and I kind that lie.
That mother brother can't do nah. When a girl walks in with an itty bitty bent and a big thing in your face, you get
Sprung. No. Yo, when's Lillard gonna cool off, man? Is he cooling off anytime in this playoffs?
hopefully not against the Lakers and
Man, I mean
maybe he runs out of juice trying to win that series and become a superstar, become a household name.
Man, I think he's already a superstar. I think he's staked his claim, rightfully so. And this is honestly, I think the proper way to put it is he's just putting everybody on notice right now because he's been doing the damn thing for the past 5 to 6 years. It's just that he's on the West Coast. He plays on a small market team. You really don't see a lot of his games on national television unless he's playing one of these other big name or big market teams. He's been doing the thing, and he's been the Portland Trailblazers since he's gotten drafted. Face of the franchise, no doubt. Puts the team on his back. He's averaged over 26 for the last 4 or 5 years, topping out at 30 this year, I think, or he's close to 30 right now, 29 point something. And he's just put on a crazy performance in the bubble. So I think with what he's done on national television, every game on ESPN, TNT, or NBA Network, or the NBA channel, he's been balling. He's been balling, and it's against the top competition in the league. Everybody that got invited here was a playoff contender at least, and he's balled out on every occasion. Now, is it crazy to say at this
point? They fired
him
up, bro. They fired him up. He didn't show up at the bubble intending to go this hard. Skip Bayless, Pat Bev, and
Paul George.
Paul George, PG-13. They riled him up, bro. Because he did have that one game where he didn't come through for his team with those free throws, but since then it's just been a killing spree for anybody guarding him, and it's been from wherever. Like he's been draining from wherever.
Does he have his own range, or is he considered within the Curry range? I'm one to say that Curry's the guy who opened it up for people to shoot out there. So anybody that shoots out there, regardless if they're shooting more than him or not, it's Curry range, and you can't disrespect Steph Curry like that by just calling it Lillard range. Although it's crazy to see him pull up from where he's been pulling up from. That one shot that he hit off the pick and roll against the Lakers.
They don't even move the net, nothing.
There's a sense like it looks like Steph might be like chunking it a little, but I mean he's a natural shooter. That's just
we remember seeing him carry the MVP trophy, bro. He had to like do a little squat to hold it up, right?
Yeah, but I mean the first one that I ever saw shoot like that was Steph, and I still go back to I think it was that game against the Thunder. Was it opening night? They were wearing the black jerseys. Yeah, and he just bombed it from half court pretty much to win the game. They were down by 2. So yeah, I still got to give Steph his respect, but back to Damian Lillard, man, I think he's a superstar. I think he's proved it. I think he's like right. What'd you say?
We don't have to give Steph any respect. He didn't do anything this year. We can save it for next year.
He's been hurt.
He might be representing the Warriors at the lottery here in like the next 30 minutes.
He may be. I don't know who's representing who, but we'll see who the Warriors end up with. They're probably going to end up with the number 1 pick for all we know. With the odds that they have.
And Lonzo and replace Curry.
Yeah.
I mean, not Lonzo. Melo. Yeah, Melo.
But, Damian Lillard, and this probably was talked about a little bit more last week after he got into it with Paul George and Patrick Beverley, both guys who he sent home in the playoffs on their respective teams. But it just brought up the talk of, is there any credence to what Damian Lillard said by calling out Paul George and Patrick Beverley and saying that, you guys, you swap teams, you're running from the grind. You're looking to pair up with somebody who can carry the load since you're not that type of player, a la Paul George trying to hook up with Russell Westbrook, although I think that was more of a even playing field with those two. But then he moves on to Kawhi Leonard, and it's clear Kawhi Leonard is the alpha there. If there's any question who the alpha is between Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. So I asked that to say, do you think there's, not do you think, but what side of the coin do you land on?
I'm on Dame's side in speaking to Paul George, but not Patrick Beverley, because Patrick Beverley has grind to get to where he is right now. Like, he was in the G League, he was overseas.
For sure.
Patrick Beverley's a dog. He's been grinding. So unfortunately for him, he got traded as a part of the CP3 deal. Him and Montrezl Harrell and Lou Williams, they were all a part of that. Like, they just happened to end up there. Paul George went and seeked out teaming up with Kawhi Leonard, after already being teamed up with Westbrook. But like you said, Dame knocked him out of the playoffs and made Paul George switch teams.
Made him switch teams, exactly. Yeah, he's the reason why Paul George is in LA.
He has a point, for sure. He has a point. And I know that you had mentioned to me just on the side that it got kind of personal, like as far as members.
Yeah, so Paul George's fiance started posting stuff on Instagram. Damian Lillard's sister and her got into it, which led to Paul George reaching out to Damian Lillard and kind of, squashing the beef and just saying, hey, this is all competitive banner, nothing more than that, just excited to be in the position that we're in. But we'll get into it a little bit later. The Clippers, I don't know if their path is as clear as we all thought it was. Everybody here on the pod, except for Justin, had them as the champion going into this year. Most NBA pundits do as well, but we'll get into that when we do the NBA playoff update. But without further ado, hey, this is episode 16 of the We Talking About Sports podcast. If you haven't noticed, there's only two voices talking today. Justin couldn't be with us today. There's some technical difficulties on his side, but without further ado, I'm Roland Zamora, and I'm joined here today with Ben Diaz, a main contributor here.
Justin's
so Ben,
behind the curtains. Behind the curtains.
He's the brains behind the operation. He's keeping things going right now. He's not with us on camera, but he's here in spirit.
He's in his Kanye bag producing.
Yeah. He's producing it right now on the computer, right, for sure. But Ben, tell me a little bit about what you've been up to since we've last potted. Have you been watching some of these games?
Bro. Working, and then on the weekends, partying a bit, turning on the grill. This past weekend was watching the UFC.
Less than 10 people at all times?
Yeah. Of course. So, hey, my circle's like a Cheerio, baby. We keep it tight. But yeah, I had people over for the Stipe and DC fight, man, the pay-per-view, the UFC. And other than that, just been watching my Rockets do work, baby. Looking like we on a mission to the title. We just finished game 2, won, and it feels good to be doing the podcast off a win and a 2-0 lead in the series.
A nice 2-0 lead.
Because last time we were doing the podcast, I was here kind of frightened of the Thunder, because they had beaten us 3 times in the regular season. But shit, man, the playoffs is a complete different atmosphere, a complete different game, and it's showing. It's showing, man. Without Russ, for both games, and we're gonna get into it later if he's even gonna play in this series. But
I don't think you need him.
No, I'm very confident, and I like what I'm seeing, man. I like what I'm seeing.
Nice, man. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, myself, I got on a plane this past weekend, or actually like on Friday and then back on Monday. Went to go visit some buddies up in Fort Worth. Shout out Will, shout out India. Just got a new house up there, so I went and joined them and just spent a little bit of relaxing time. Actually got out on the lake, have a almost serious back injury. I was wakeboarding and I did not fare well. There are no videos, don't ask. I did not take any videos of the incident, but I can tell you my back is sore. It happened on Saturday, and it's still tweaked a little bit. So.
Did you back flop or what?
I'll leave the details out, but I face planted essentially. It was pretty bad. But no, it's all good. It was fun. It was nice just to have a change of scenery and get away from the grind that I've been on for the past couple months at work. So yeah, I'm just glad to be back potting. There's been a lot of sports going on. It feels almost back to normal. We got the NHL playoffs going on, got the NBA playoffs going on.
NHL's been intense.
Yeah, NHL's been crazy. Baseball's finding a way to survive. I'm surprised they're not canceled yet. I saw the Mets, their game just got canceled because of COVID. We'll see. And I've been seeing some weird stuff, like Some teams have played 20 games. Some teams have only played 10.
Like the
I don't know.
Cardinals.
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to shake out at the end of the year.
Our Astros are on an 8-game win streak, baby.
They're looking good.
And,
They're looking good. Hopefully,
yesterday, Jordan Alvarez, after coming back for like 2 or 3 games, got out for the season with a knee injury. So,
oh wow. Hopefully, Bregman is okay too. I saw he came up.
Bregman's getting an MRI for his hammy as well, but Altuve had 4 hits today, man.
Nice.
So,
he's on fire.
Yeah, 8 wins in a row.
Hell yeah, and there's no trash cans involved, so you guys can't say anything about that.
No
we would all hear it otherwise because there's no fans in the stands. So yeah, but let's get into it a little bit here. We started talking about Damian Lillard in the NBA, and before we're not yet at the playoff update, but we have a couple of little updates here. As you guys know, the draft lottery is tonight. That's going to be taking place between the Bucks and the Blazers. I mean, Bucks versus Magic. Don't want to disrespect them. The Bucks are down 1-0 right now, trying to tie it up. And the Lakers and Blazers game. So that's going to be taking place in between that. So it'll have come out by the time the podcast is broken up or has been released. So as we all know, the team.
Roland, shout out my brother Leo. He's having a party, a lottery party.
He's having a lottery party because
hoping the Warriors get the 1 pick, and he
his
invited more than 10 people because it's for the Warriors, bro.
He invited more than 10 people. Reported.
Yeah, shout out to he really wants his number 1 pick.
Man, but I don't know though.
Leo having a lottery party.
I think this class or this draft class is a little weird. I don't get a very, very good feeling about it. I think there's a lot of unknown, especially when you take into consideration everything that's been going on with COVID and coronavirus. I don't know how much scouting these teams have been able to do. Obviously, March Madness got canceled, although the draft prospects are pretty much shaken out by that time, so probably not too much of an effect on the draft order and information that's out on these guys, but just the talent crop in this year's draft, I think it's really hit or miss. I saw a Bleacher Report article that brought up a pretty good point. This reminds me of the draft in 2013 when Anthony Bennett went number 1. So you have a bunch of guys that are in the mix, but depending on who you ask, one person might have LaMelo Ball as their number 1 draft pick. Somebody else might not even have him in their top 10. So that's kind of the varying opinions that we have on the talent this year. So I don't know, the number 1 pick is such a coveted spot. I do think you'd rather be up there than at number 14 for sure.
That's why, Roland, that's why this is the year that the Knicks get the number 1 pick, bro.
When it's not a certain,
yeah, bro.
Exactly. It's less than certain for sure. And usually the past couple of years, the top 1 to at least the top 2 guys, you knew that you're getting yourself a pretty good player or a chance of turning into an all-star these past few years. Last year highlighted by Zion and John Morant. And then you saw the drop-off to RJ Barrett after that. No disrespect to RJ, but I just don't think he's in the same class as those 2 players. And so back to 2013, you have Anthony Bennett who went number 1, and then Giannis went number 15 that year. How insane is that?
CJ McCollum, number 10.
So I think this draft has a lot of similarities to that one. There's a lot of guys.
KCP number 8. Damn, that draft was weak, boy.
LaMelo Ball is probably up there as the number 1 prospect. There's Anthony Edwards,
the big man from
Georgia,
Memphis.
The big man from Memphis. But see, he came into the college year
suspended,
at
right?
Memphis. Yeah, he got suspended after a couple games, but I mean, he was averaging a 20 and 10 double-double. James Wiseman, he did what he needed to do. Right. But if you ask scouts, there's somebody who doesn't even have him in the lottery right now, or they have him as a bottom-end lottery pick. So there's a varying difference of opinions on a lot of these guys. So it gives me a lot of uncertainty.
That would be like coming out of high school, right?
Yeah.
For him?
Almost. And then you have the college guy in there that everybody knows and loves from Dayton this year. Took the college basketball scene by storm.
Oh, hell yeah.
Obi Toppin.
He's athletic, man.
Obi Toppin. Yeah, he's going to be a top 10 pick for sure. But he's a little bit older, so he kind of drops off a little bit. There's been talk
Who's
of
the international guy?
the international guy is actually he's out of Israel. His name is Denny Avdija. I'm probably messing that up.
Small forward, power forward, or what?
Yeah, he's like a point forward. He's playing that power forward position. Yeah, he lines up at the small and power forward spot. He's a do-it-all kind of perimeter player. He led his team in the Israel League to the championship. Maccabi Tel Aviv is one of the bigger European squads. And in EuroLeague play, he looked pretty good from what the scouts are saying, and they have him anywhere from the 6 to 10 range. So we'll see. I just don't know if there's any prospect out there that you're just like, damn, I have to trade up to get him, or trade a pick to, or trade a player to go up and get
another. Who was the standout at Kentucky this year? Like, isn't that who goes number one usually?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, Zion
Kentucky's always at least got 2 dudes in the top 5. Kentucky or Duke.
The names that I'm seeing here, not really from Kentucky. I mean, you have that Memphis player. You have Obi Toppin from Dayton, Anthony Edwards from Georgia, James Wiseman from Memphis, LaMelo Ball, RJ Hampton, both played in Australia. Another interesting name that's been popping up is Patrick Williams. He is a kind of a 6'8" small power forward from Florida State. He's from that crop of lengthy defender who can, put the ball on the floor.
They were the tallest team
bucket as well. Consistently one of the tallest teams in basketball.
Isaac and all those guys came out of there.
Didn't scare anybody away with his stat line or blow anybody out of the water. Excuse me. Only averaged 9 and 4. But in college, I mean, the minutes kind of, when you have a team like Florida State who's pretty deep, you don't get too much time to shine unless you're the quote unquote star there. But they take more of a team approach there. The other name that I think was surprising, this will be the last one I bring up before I move off this topic, or we move off this topic, is Jalen Smith, the power forward center out of Maryland. He spent some time in the college ranks, and a lot of this is just based off of his skill set and what he has as a power forward. It's kind of playing that new stretch the floor. If you can't shoot the 3, you're going to drop a little bit, but they have him projected as a lottery pick here. So that's it for the players. The teams, I'm obviously excited for the Spurs. The Spurs, this is the first time they've been in the lottery since like 1997 or something like that. So for one, I'm just hoping that we draft a guy that's going to be a contributor and not somebody that's overseas for a few years like we like to do, and like we've done in previous years.
And that's because the Spurs have been doing work with the picks that they've had, which are usually later off in the first round.
Yeah.
Look at Derek White, and
I love Derek White.
The other dude out of Michigan State that Joby was comparing to Harden, y'all drafted him pretty late as well.
Actually, Keldon, he's a Kentucky product.
Yeah. But he was like pick 20 something, wasn't he?
Keldon, I think he might have been drafted in the second round.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
The Spurs are finding talent in the second round. Imagine what they're going to do with a top 14 pick.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about that, despite the fact of what we just said about this draft class not being as solid as we've seen in previous years. But is there a team, I know you mentioned the Warriors, is there anybody else that you're looking out for in this lottery? I know your team's consistently been in the playoffs, so you don't pay much attention to tonight.
And we trade away all our picks, too.
Yeah, true. So is there anything that you're looking forward to?
I mean, I always want to see what's going to happen with the Knicks on lottery night, bro, because somehow they always get the bad bounce, bro. They always get the bad bounce.
They ended up with a 3 spot last year, right? And that's how they ended up
so
with
they
RJ
could have had
Barrett.
John Morant or Zion, but they ended up with RJ. And like, man, I'm a Dookie, but RJ Barrett ain't it. And then the year before, they took Kevin Knox out of Kentucky
instead of Michael Porter.
Yeah, or like, it's like, nah, bro. I mean, they always find a way, bro. And then the year before that, they took that point guard out of
Franklin and Littentica. That was the craziest one of them all.
I mean, look at their drafts are just like, bro.
On draft night, that was Phil Jackson.
You know that
was Phil Jackson right there.
Yeah, that was him. That was terrible.
He drafted KP. That's like the one good thing that he did, even though he didn't last there.
Bag of chips.
Mm-hmm. Sad that they couldn't. Man, they could have Michael Porter Jr., KP, John Morant. If the ball ball bounces a little differently for them, the Knicks look completely different. But it is what it is. They're the New York Knickerbockers. Sticking with the NBA, and I guess this has playoff implications on it, but where it took place last year in the playoffs or the NBA Finals. There was new video that came out of the Raptors GM, Masai Ujiri, getting harassed by the cop after the Raptors defeated the Warriors in Oakland last year to win the championship. Yeah. If you guys remember, there was a big deal made about Ujiri trying to enter the court, and it looked like he got into a shoving match with a cop, and then Kyle Lowry comes out of nowhere and kind of saves the day and is like, hey, he's with us, we're over here, takes him onto the court to celebrate. Like, right. He should be able to. He's the GM of that team. New footage has come out and shown that it was completely unprovoked. He was actually reaching for his credential card, and then he got shoved, and then that's when the drama started. Right. So,
but it wasn't even much drama because he really didn't even react. He didn't push back in the video.
No, he just looked stunned. Like, yeah, what's your problem?
Oh, that was very uncalled for. So that was weird, bro. Yeah, the GM of the team, the guy who put this team together, made the trade for Kawhi that was a rental for the year, but hey, it's a window. It's a window. Let's go for it. And then you accomplish it. You dethrone the Warriors. And you're trying to get on the court with the team and celebrate, and the security guard just denies you, bro. No questions asked, just shoves you. He I don't want to say flew back, but I mean he pushed him back a good amount, and then they kind of got into like a war of words or a shouting match until Kyle Lowry came by and escorted him. But we saw that there was like charges being pressed on him that night.
And that's what I'm saying. The craziest part of this all is that the cop is the one that filed a suit against Ujiri and said that he assaulted him.
Warrior stand.
That he got assaulted and that, quote unquote, he suffered injury to his body, health, strength, activity, and person, all of which caused and continue to cause Mr. Strickland great mental, emotional, psychological, physical, and nervous pain and suffering.
Just going after the bag, you bastard.
Yeah, there's more to come on this story because this came out as part of the defense for Ujiri trying to get this case dismissed, and I'm sure it's going to end up in that.
That's all you need to see. Yeah.
Yeah, that's clear. I mean, it's clear as day. It was unprovoked. This guy had a hard on or had a stick up. You know what, and was just flat out disrespectful. No need to do that at all. Like, I mean, I honestly can't shoot this guy any bail whatsoever. I mean, I can't understand it from any perspective. I mean, maybe if Ujiri pushed him, you push back, whatever, but it's clear in the video that he was reaching for his credentials. I mean, maybe if Ujiri was standoffish and was like, I don't need to show shit to you, and tries to walk on or whatever, then you're like, hey, guy, you got to stop. But that was not the case at all. He was complying. He was busting out the credentials, and he got shoved. So, yeah, hopefully this gets resolved in court, and we don't have to report on this anymore.
Quickly, too.
Yeah, and that happened in the NBA Finals. And recently, we've had the playoff start, and this will lead us into our NBA playoff update. But one thing that we've all noticed, and I think it's been pretty apparent, is that the offenses in the bubble have just been flat out on fire. I feel like there's been a bunch of overs. There's been a bunch of chucking, not like chucking, but guys just shooting it from wherever. I know we just spent a couple of minutes talking about Dame, but he's not the only one that's been shooting from extended range. I've seen a bunch of guys just pulling up, like Lou Williams has been pulling from anywhere. Jason Tatum last night was having a three-point clinic on the 76ers. The whole Celtics were really. But the overall offensive play this year, or not this year, but in the bubble, has been up. So just to throw out some numbers in there, the 22 teams in the bubble have averaged 113 points per 100 possessions in the bubble against 111 prior to the shutdown in March. So offensive efficiency is up. Efficiency in the half court which we all know can get kind of shoddy sometimes, depending on how these teams play, has jumped up by almost 4 points. So their average offensive efficiency in half-court possessions before the bubble was 95. It's jumped up to about 99 in the bubble. Things that could be contributing to this, and I'll introduce these and let you give me your opinion on what you think is contributing the most to this, or if you see any difference. Fouls are up considerably. Defenses may have taken a little bit of time to adjust because the shooting percentage, I guess, or the number of shots that have been taken that are considered uncontested are up slightly, which might lead you to believe that the defenses have, suffering from possible, what's the word I'm looking for, endurance issues because of the layoff, taking a little while to get their legs under them, which has also led to potentially more fouls. People have said that the refs have also needed more time to adjust to the new bubble and to the way that, there's no crowd and stuff like that. But free throw attempts are up by almost 3 per game, even through to the playoffs, with the last seeding game having been played last week. So, there's a couple of things that people are saying. There's no fans. There's a clear baseline. Players are a little bit more confident driving to the rim, and the depth perception. So do you think any of those things are playing into this? And do you think it's going to continue throughout the playoffs? Or do you think there's going to be some slowdown?
Absolutely. I think that the bubble's a complete different monster. It's, your role players and bench players, they don't play well on the road, because on the road, the other crowd is in their face and they're not used to it, and not everybody plays the way they usually play at home. And here in the bubble, it's like Houston would have had the 2 home games against OKC, and now we got to go to OKC, and that's not an easy building to play in. Mm-hmm. That's very college atmosphere. A lot of people have compared it to, due to it being their only sports team. But now it's just another 2 games in the bubble. And like
it's just a straight up game.
The guys that are feeling themselves are just going to be feeling themselves because nothing's going to change. These virtual fans, nobody cares about the virtual fans. They're pumping some crowd noise, but like it's
I think it's mainly for the viewing audience at home.
Yeah, and the depth perception, 100%. I think that plays a factor. Closer walls behind the.
You have some experience shooting in an NBA court. You can speak from experience.
Back in my high school days, we played that one game at the AT&T Center for the Spurs, bro, and it's like you're shooting 2, and obviously the 3-point line is further, but you're shooting into darkness because obviously the top is empty and it's dark over there, so it's weird. And
so how off was your first shot?
Oh, short, for sure. For sure, short. But yeah, when you play we also played at the Dodge Arena, and that's like where the Vipers played back in the day. But there it wasn't as big as, the AT&T Center, so it wasn't as bad. But definitely with the depth perception, I mean, they're NBA players, they should probably be used to it. But like I said, the role players, they gotta feel way more comfortable here, man. Mm-hmm. I think that it's a big plus. As far as the fouls, usually referees tend to have a tighter whistle in the playoffs, and it seems like we've been seeing the opposite. Teams getting into the bonus like with 6 minutes left in the quarter. Pretty annoying. And like you said, it relates just to overs. Like rarely are teams not scoring 100. I think the Thunder didn't do it in the first playoff game. The Lakers didn't do it in the first playoff.
93 bombs.
And I think Orlando's not going to score 100 tonight. But other than that, like 100's a given. You know what I mean? So not that it wasn't in the regular season, but like it's guaranteed in these games now with the fouls and just how comfortable everybody is. So I definitely think that it plays a big part. The officiating, I think, will tighten up as it goes on. With all, obviously, it's not fans complaining. I think that would be worse too. Like, the whole arena
you hear it from the arena when you
might make you a little bit tighter. You know what I mean? Especially at the home arena.
Favor one team.
It's at the home, exactly. So it's definitely different. Yeah, I'm not going to get the other thing.
Almost every type of foul. Well, actually, every type of foul that you can call is up a percentage point or 2. Shooting fouls, other personal fouls, loose balls, charges. technicals are slightly up. And I think a lot of it is because there is no crowd noise, so the refs can really hear when you're saying
hear everything. Yeah.
you're saying,
Dudes
fuck
ain't
that
mumbling
call or something
stuff.
like that.
Dudes
Yeah,
ain't
exactly. And I think they have incorporated a delay, because I really haven't heard much on the court in terms of cussing like I thought I was going to hear prior to the bubble.
There's about a second or two delay because it gets muted. And even like when a foul gets called, they make the call after the foul's, like you can already see that they've called the foul, but then the announcer will say it. So the audio is definitely delayed.
And we'll talk about it a little bit more, but since we're talking about fouls, and I know we're kind of moving on from the what was I going to say? The offenses in the bubble, and I think we've talked about the main points of why they're up. But do you think that foul on Kristaps Porzingis, or that technical foul that they called on him, the first or the second, and particularly the second one, do you think that the referee was a little too quick with his whistle? I get the fact that it was his second technical, so you're automatically out of the game on that second tee, no matter what.
They didn't eject him because of what he did. They ejected him because it was his second one.
His second technical, for sure. For those of you guys who didn't watch, KP, he got an early first quarter technical, I believe, for challenging a call. And then later on in the game, I think it was early second half, early third quarter, there was a scrum where him and Marcus, I always get the Morris twins confused.
It was Morris and Luka.
Yeah. Morris and Luka were going at it, and KP, as the post, the center of the team, came in and stuck his head in for the MVP of the team and the point guard, small forward that Luka is, and got in Morris's face. Morris actually choked KP, but KP caught a technical because he wasn't initially involved in the scrum, and he made himself a part of it. So he got the T. But I will bring up an example. I think Draymond Green, and I know he's not in the playoffs right now, I think he got a very, 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 very long leash these maybe last two playoffs, especially on one technical, and not getting that second one and getting thrown out. So I just asked, do you think the ref should have been a little bit more lenient and not giving him the second tee?
The Draymond is the cheat code to this, just because, like, I don't know, the Warriors were good for TV, I guess, but he is the exception to this. But honestly, maybe I don't agree so much with the first one, because all he did was cuss the ref out. He had gotten a block on Paul George, but he did hit George's elbow before getting the ball, so the ref called a foul. He kind of cussed the ref out, and the ref teed him up early, kind of to set the mood, set the tone, not the mood, right? But set the tone, like, hey, you ain't going to be talking like that to us all game. It's barely it was like late first, early second, like, chill. All right, bro, you're not even that tough. You got beat up outside of a club in, like, Europe or some shit.
Dude, they smashed a bottle on his head.
What? How did they even get to his head, bro? He's a fucking unicorn. Like, what? Anyways, but then in that instance, how often is that not a double technical? Like, any time that happens between two players, it's automatic. They give it to both of them every single time. And he even kind of like put hands on Morris. Not that it was like in a super like aggressive way, or that he punched him or anything, but he put hands on him, and he came, like you said, from out of the play. Yeah,
out of the play. I think that's what gave it to him.
You like to see him stick up for him, but maybe it should be somebody else besides the other star on the team. And
that's the main thing that I saw on Twitter is, do you think the ref should have taken into consideration that A, he's a star player on the team, and B, he's a pivotal player? I mean, you take KP out, and the Mavericks are severely hampered by that.
That's on him,
do you
bro.
leave him in?
He went and threw himself in. Listen, it was his first playoff game of his career.
And he even admitted to that, too.
He was excited. He was excited. It was game one. He also had to set the tone. A lot of people argue they could have won that game one. They were kind of in control most of the way up until after that. And I mean, we saw what happened in game two. Look, and their fans told me, you want to see that. Yeah, you do, but it comes with consequences, man. And he already had one technical. If he didn't have any technicals and that was his first, it would have been perfectly fine. But you just got to be smarter than that if you're Porzingis. It was his first playoff game. He'll learn, and it's 1-1, man. They're in good shape. So
yeah,
I do think that it was the right call, though. I do think that it was the right call because that's always a double technical. Yes, the first one was weak, but that happened like a quarter or two ago. You know what I mean? So you got to know as a player.
That's true. And we're going to talk more about this series later. So we'll just leave it off right there. And that was it really for the NBA quick hitters as far as, non-playoff related. I know we got a little bit into the playoffs there, but there's a lot more to talk about. So NBA playoffs obviously got kicked off with the play-in game on, I think it was Friday afternoon, with the Blazers playing their way into the 8th seed, which led them to upsetting the Lakers in the first game of the playoffs, the 1 versus the 8. And I think it was a pretty solid victory. I don't think it was fluky. I think they were the better team throughout the game. And it really showed with the final victory, the final score 100-93 for the Lakers versus the Blazers, And then the number 2 seed in the 7th spot, we just got done talking about them. They were losing, or they weren't in control of that game 1 matchup against the 7 seed Mavericks before the KP ejection. They ended up eking that game out. I think it went to overtime, but then they ended up winning by a couple of. I might have that wrong, but it was close throughout most of the game, and they ended up pulling away.
They pulled away in the fourth.
Yeah, put the game away. Then you fast forward to game 2, which they've already played, and the Mavericks had a pretty resounding victory in that game 2, with KP playing the full game. Luka Doncic had another MVP-like performance. So it just leads me to ask the question, do we think that either of these higher-seeded teams, being the Lakers and the Clippers at the 1 and 2, do we think any of these teams are in trouble? If we think both of them are in trouble, who's in more trouble? And do we think either of these guys are at risk of losing their respective series? Ben, I'll let you kick this one off.
Well, I'll start off with the Clippers, because I think that their problem, like when they match up against the Lakers, is guarding that athletic stretch 4-5 type of guy. They're really struggling with Porzingis, man. Like, as far as guarding him, Montrezl Harrell and even Zubac, they can't guard him. Porzingis is hitting threes. Obviously, Luka's going to get his. He had 40 or 31, something like that in game 1. Yesterday, only 26, but I mean, a game that they were in control of for the most part. He sat out a lot of the fourth quarter, and Seth Curry was actually running the show for a bit. They dominated game 2. Game 1 was that whole ejection. The Mavs were in control of that game up until that point. We spoke on that earlier, but I don't know, man. Kawhi Leonard isn't. I don't think Kawhi Leonard's going to be eliminated in the first round.
Okay.
So I did have the Blazers winning, I believe, in 5. Maybe that's at jeopardy, but I still don't think that this is going to be a 7-game series. Although I'm pulling for the Blazers, my realistic pick is that the Clippers will get it done within 6 games. But I'm pulling for the Mavs. I definitely am pulling for the Mavs. I think that'd be better for us. And in the other one, the Lakers and the Blazers, I mean, now the Lakers got to win 4 out of 6. Yeah, they can do it because they're the number 1 seed for a reason. They have LeBron James. I don't expect him to be eliminated in the first round either. The problem for the Lakers, man, is the bench and the shooting. They
don't know how to shoot.
Listen, if Alex, and I stress this, I'm the biggest Alex Caruso hater, bro, and I've been it for a while. But if he is playing 29, 30 minutes a game, I mean, that is not a championship team.
He's only getting those. I agree. He's only getting those elevated minutes, though, because I think Avery Bradley decided not to go into the bubble, and because Rajon Rondo is hurt right now, which I think he's working his way back.
And Rajon Rondo might play tomorrow, but even then, he's not going to help their shooting percentages go up. That's something that he's not going to help.
They weren't a good three-point shooting team coming into the bubble either. They were like towards the bottom half, and now they're dead last in the bubble in terms of three-point shooting percentage. So
it's bad. I mean, they hit five last game. The Blazers really didn't even play that well. Zach Collins didn't play in game 1. the Blazers had some success using that lineup of Nurkic and Whiteside both together with Melo, CJ and Dame, or Melo, Gary Trent and Dame. And I thought that they had success in that. I was actually really surprised in how well Hassan Whiteside played. 5 blocks. He does jump at everything. I think that they should just pump fake him a little bit more because he does tend to find himself in foul trouble, always chasing that block. But they definitely found something playing them two together to kind of combat that big lineup that the Lakers have that advantage, that big advantage with.
Sure.
So I think it's going to be interesting, man. It's a jump shooting team against a more of a bully, brute, scoring the paint team. And if the jumpers keep falling, the Blazers are going to win. The problem is, are they going to fall for 3 games in a row? If they take a 2-0 lead, it's over. If they take a 2-0 lead, the Lakers will not come back. However, I do expect it to be 1-1 after tonight.
I think it's going to, just to give you my thoughts, I thank you for that, Ben. Just to give you mine real quick. I think both of these teams, they're not going to lose the first round series. I see pretty big red flags in my eyes on both of these squads, which I'll get into right now. But just to give you my prediction, I think both of these series are going to go 7 games. I think they're both going to be stretched out. I think the Blazers have a really good chance of going up 2-0 tonight. I don't think the Lakers have quite figured it out on offense. They don't know where they're getting their points from on the bench, like you mentioned. They have Alex Caruso being their sub in the fourth quarter when they need to change the pace. Hey, we need to bring this guy on. We need something. And then you see Alex Caruso getting subbed in. It's like, what the heck? Like, that's not the way a championship. He
even took like a 3 in the final minute. That was just
he just jacked it up.
What type of positivity does that give you when you see, like, all right, 3 minutes and the sub-in is Alex
Caruso. Exactly. That's what I was saying.
In the second quarter, so he's cool. He's cool. But if we're really going to be honest with it, bro, he cannot be playing 30 minutes. He cannot be playing 30 minutes.
He can't be counted on to be a main contributor on a championship
14,
team.
15 minutes.
I completely agree. So hopefully once Rondo comes back, his minutes go down a little bit for the Lakers' sake, because he is a hustle guy. But at the end of the day, you can't rely on him for points, and that's what the Lakers are struggling to get. He can play some decent defense, do whatever, provide some pressure, although I think Damian Lillard will have his way with him either way, get you some hustle plays, but that's about it. The Lakers, they need points right now. They need to find shooting. So
he's not even like Delly, Roland. Like, if he was Delly, it'd be okay.
He's on that same little playing field, but I would still go Delly that year that he was with the Cavs. Those 2 years with the Cavs, that he had a pretty big role. The 1 year that Kyrie Irving went
he's
down.
Not even like, if he was that, okay, but it's not. He's not.
Yeah, Delly is still a little bit better than Caruso. I'll give you that for sure. And then, like I said, the shooting gives me pause for concern. So that's why I'm not confident in the Lake. I'm so confident in the Lakers winning this series. I think it's going to go 7 because ultimately I still think LeBron James is going to find a way to get it done.
Game 7 he would.
He's just going to get it done. Unless something has changed, I'm just going to go with history, and LeBron James is going to find a way to get it done for this round. And usually he's found a way to get it done through at least the conference finals or the finals. But let me tell you, I'm stopping with my confidence in the Lakers winning a series in this first round. I don't know if they win their second round matchup. I'm not very confident in that.
I'm chomping at the bit, baby. I'm chomping at the bit.
I'm not very confident in them winning their second round matchup. So that's my big takeaway from this series, is that I don't think the Lakers are a championship contender anymore, just based on what I've seen so far. And I know a bunch of guys are calling out Anthony Davis right now, and rightfully so. I'm a big Anthony Davis backer. I think he's a top 10, top 15 player, but he's come up short kind of in time and time again when
settling
for jumpers. But I mean, he's not really a true center at the end of the day. I mean, he always complained about playing the 5 in New Orleans. That's why they brought over Boogie. He's been adamant about not playing the 5 in LA. That's why you have Dwight and JaVale McGee getting minutes. He wants to play that 4 because he's not a real post presence. So I think that plays into smaller teams. It plays into the Rockets' favor. They're not going to have to worry about getting backed down in that second round. So that's where I'm at with the Lakers. The Clippers, I also think is going to be a 7-game series. And while I think the Clippers are still my pick to come out of the West, I would not be surprised in the slightest if the Mavericks ended up winning this
I
series.
hope they do, man.
One, because Rick Carlisle, he's a top 3, top 5 coach in this league. He never really gets talked about it, but he always has his teams ready to play, no matter what he has to put out there. He gets the most out of J.J. Barea. I mean, he's consistently. I mean, J.J. Barea is a good player. Don't get me wrong, but he's
and Boban.
Boban, he has getting minutes. Finney Smith is being a contributor for them. Hardaway Jr. looks like a new player. Trey Burke, exactly. They signed before the bubble in June, and he's a contributor because who got hurt? Oh man, Trey Burke replaced somebody. They were talking about it yesterday. I'm blanking out on it, but that's one thing. Luka Doncic is a future MVP of this league, and I heard somebody talking about it on some talk show. I can't remember which one it was, but we're not getting the Luka Doncic that finished the bubble. We've had a 3-4 month layover. We're getting the Luka that we're going to be playing in the 2020 to 2021 season for next year. We're getting already a Luka 2.0 from this year. So I think we're seeing Luka ascending to that MVP level from where he was this year as an all-star newcomer onto the scene kind of a deal. And I think we're seeing that right now. So with that said, MVP caliber player to match the MVP caliber player in Kawhi Leonard on the other side. And then the other thing that gives me pause for concern on the Clippers is Mr. Playoff P. Talked about him earlier. Self-proclaimed at that, because I don't remember anybody calling him Playoff P but himself. So self-proclaimed. And he already, I like to use this phrase, with an injury after somebody's had a bad game. He kind of did the loser limp yesterday. Had a bad shooting game. And what happens? He shows up with some ice on his shoulder at the post-game conference. I don't like that one bit from my quote-unquote star or my deputy or whatever you want to call him, the second fiddle to Kawhi Leonard. It's not something good that I want to see. Maybe not so much for this round, but going on in the further rounds of the playoffs, it gives me a lot of pause for concern. Can we really count on Paul George to help out Kawhi Leonard when he needs it most?
And that's because the Mavs really don't have anybody to guard him. Like, if Tim Hardaway and Finney Smith are checking you, like, that's a problem. That is not playoff P. There's nothing playoff P about that. I mean, bro, Paul George hasn't won a playoff series since 2014. Since 2014. That's 6 years. We're now in 2020. This is his third time in the playoffs with his third different team. Why did Kawhi go and seek out Paul George of all people?
I don't know. I think probably because of the perception around Paul George as being a quality two-way player. Put the ball in the basket, ISO you, and he's also a pretty good perimeter defender for all intents and purposes.
They're from the same area too, though, right, or no?
Yeah, they're both California boys. Paul George played his ball at Fresno. Kawhi played at San Diego State, so they do have that relation. But even I just brought up Paul George being a solid defender. Man, you brought it up too. The Clippers can't stay in front of anybody, and I know Patrick Beverley is hurt right now. He has a calf strain, so you got Reggie Jackson trying.
He's out tomorrow again.
You got Reggie Jackson trying to play defense on Luka Doncic.
They need to start Shamet
all day.
But why doesn't Paul George just check Luka? Why does it have to be Reggie Jackson? Why can't he be guarding Tim Hardaway?
I think that's what's going to have to happen. I mean, these teams make adjustments from game to game, and I mean, we saw it. The one example that I always go to is when Derrick Rose was having his way with the Heat or the Cavs. Whenever Derrick Rose was on his shit, they put LeBron on him. When Tony Parker was having his way with Miami, you put LeBron on him to guard him in the last couple of possessions or whatever. I think we're going to see some adjustment of that. I think we're going to see some Paul George on Luka. We're going to see some Kawhi on Luka. We need to see that to have a little bit more.
Who's going to be on Porzingis? That's the problem. And you see, that's why I had the Clippers beating the Rockets in the Western Conference Finals, because we don't have that. We don't have that Porzingis, that Anthony Davis body that really gives the Clippers problems due to Montrezl Harrell being their big man that plays most of the minutes and him being about 6'8". So they match up really well with us. But, if the Mavs are going to take them out, man, hey, let's go. I know the Rockets can make Porzingis settle for some long twos. And, hey, shit, we'll live with that, bro. We'll live with that. So I'm rooting for both of the underdogs, although I have both of the favorites winning. So
you still have them in 6 games each? Do you think anything gets stretched out to 7?
I'll say that the Lakers and Blazers go 7 just because Dame and the Blazers are really grooving. They've been in playoff mode since they got to the bubble.
For sure.
Obviously having to fight up until the last game for their spot in the play-in game and then winning the play-in game. And I mean, even in the play-in game, how nice was it to see CJ McCullough close out the Grizzlies? I mean, he was cooking Ja in the fourth quarter.
He put Ja to work.
He said, "Hey, Dame, I got us, brother. We're going to need you for that Laker game." And, I mean, he cooked Ja. They beat the Grizzlies in 1. They had 2 shots. They beat him in the first one. And then they're just riding the wave into the Lakers series, bro. And they have the shooting. So I think in that series, like I said, they found something with Whiteside to kind of help the rebounding because I think it'd be Lakers with a bigger rebounding edge if they wouldn't be playing Whiteside and Nurkic together. But how much are the Blazers going to be able to win the 3-point line by? Like, if they're going to have a plus 20 edge at the 3-point line every game, then they're going to be right in all of those games. You know what I mean?
And I think they have a good chance of doing it because
in the fourth quarter of game 1, Melo hit a 3, CJ hit a 3, Dame hit a 3, and Trent hit a 3, bro. I mean, that's 4 guys that are viable to hit threes on you, and you're the Lakers, and you're looking for Kyle Kuzma to hit a 3 for you. It's that's where it evens out, man. And the math might just put the Blazers over the top. But I think the key to that series is a 3-point line.
Yeah, because the Lakers still haven't found a good pairing for their quote-unquote big 3 with Kuzma, AD, and LeBron. I saw they were running a lot with Danny Green and KCP, and both of those guys, I mean, KCP only scored 1 point.
Yeah, that was bad.
You can't have that. And I know you're trading offense for defense or defense for offense if you flip in JR on Dion, but they got to find a way to score points. There's no excuse for not scoring 100 on the Blazers.
What do you think about the people saying Kuzma should be starting?
I think he should. I think he should be starting. You need to get him going earlier. If he's going to be your primary, your third option after AD and LeBron James, you can't have him getting going in the second unit. You need him to get going in the first quarter, feel his shot. He builds his confidence throughout the game. Not that he's lacking confidence, but it'll help him.
Yeah, I'm going to disagree just because if he's not coming off the bench, what do they have off the bench?
That's true, too. That's why they got to use JR and Dion, I think. Get some initiators in there.
Keep him in the game with either Braun or AD. Like, stagger them that way. Like, if you're going to have Braun sitting and AD in, make sure Kuzma's in. If AD's going to be sitting and Braun's going to be in, have Kuzma in. Like, late in the first quarter, one of them's going to check out, get Kuzma going there, ride it into the second quarter, but run plays for him. You know what I mean? Because right now he is their best shooter, and he actually has been shooting well. Like, he's been shooting shots. So some are tough shots, like that game winner that he hit was probably a little bit tougher than he made it seem, but he's hitting shots right now. He seems to be in some sort of zone. It would stretch the floor out a lot more if they put him in at the starting lineup with LeBron and AD at the same time instead of staggering him with either one of them. But then you just don't have shit off the bench, man. You have Dwight, Caruso, KCP off the bench. Like, are they going to score 10 points combined?
I think we see an adjustment tonight. I think we see JR and Dion get some more playing time just because I think LeBron's going to have Vogel's ear. I think he's going to be chomping and saying, hey, we need to score some points. And I think they're hearing it from everybody everywhere outside of the bubble, calling for more offense and calling for shots.
Tonight's game, score.
I got the Blazers winning a shootout. I'm going to go Blazers 113, Lakers 110. It's going to be a close game, but I still got the Blazers pulling it off. I'm just not confident in the Lakers scoring with the Blazers from what I've seen. And if the Lakers route to victory is going to be trying to shut them down, I don't know that it's going to happen. I don't think they can. I don't
I'll
think
go
they have the matchups.
Lakers. I'll go Lakers 110, Blazers 106.
Okay.
So I
All
got
right.
the Lakers tying it up. But
And so-
who else we got?
And the last one that I had on here, I think it's just more talking about what's going on with the team and where do we see them in the future, is what the heck is going on or what has happened with the Philadelphia 76ers. Everybody knows they made the whole tanking thing notorious and popular. Tanking for the
Trust
number
the
one
process.
the number one pick 3 years in a row, which I do think they messed up one of those by going Markelle Fultz over Jason Tatum. Imagine that right now. If the Sixers had Jason Tatum to pair with Joel Embiid, that would be a crazy combination.
Imagine the Lakers with Tatum and LeBron and AD.
The way that Jason Tatum's been taken off.
Both of those teams messed up taking
time.
Lonzo and Markelle, but
Big time messed up. But neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But we have the 76ers down 2-0 to the Celtics.
You think they get swept?
I think it's going to be 4-1. I think they're going to Embiid's going to get them at least one victory because I think it's been well documented. The Celtics just don't have any answer for him in the interior post. Their interior post reminds me of that movie Rebound. Remember with Martin Lawrence, where he's the middle school basketball coach, and they had that one tall guy who was their interior post. And then when the other team found out that they couldn't defend anything, they're just like keep on going inside every time. So I think Embiid's gonna get them a game, but just watching the Sixers, man, like it's just so weird watching that team. You have Tobias Harris on a big contract. Al Horford is on a huge contract that they paid him to bring him over from the Celtics. And it just hasn't worked out. And then you have their two superstars or stars, Embiid and Simmons, that they tanked for, and they're both pretty good players. I think we can both say that they're both all-star quality players, but they just can't seem to mix together. One does better when the other's off the court, the other does vice versa. They're better without one another. They occupy some of the same space.
The spacing. But
Do you blow it up after this?
I think the first thing is the coach has got to go right away. I know people have been calling for him since forever. Originally, I had this series Celtics in 6. And then when Hayward went out after game 1, now he's going to be out for 4 weeks. I said, shit, now it's guaranteed to go 6. But Embiid had 30 and 10 in game 2, and it's like, bro, y'all lost by 11. There's nobody else. Al Horford scoring 2 points a game on that. Tobias Harris with 9 points a game. That's the thing. You blow it up, it's going to have to be Embiid or Simmons because the other guys just aren't trading chips. There's no value.
Well, not on the contract that Tobias Harris has.
Exactly. Or Al Horford.
Yeah, Al Horford's contract's horrible.
And it's like maybe Thibault you can throw in with some draft picks or something, but what is it really going to get you? You know what I mean? So they even made that switch and they started Thibault in game 2 to try and check
Tatum.
Yeah, to try and check Tatum, but he got torched, and honestly, that's the best option they have for Tatum. So Tatum's just going to be having his way for that series, it seems. But man, it might be 4, it might be 5 now for the Celtics, but Embiid just doesn't have help there, man. Like Richardson, Shake Milton.
Oh my God, he hit that big shot against the Spurs, but other than that, I'll let him shoot all day.
Yeah, bro, it's not good. And honestly, what big man is going to win you a series by himself? Like,
not anymore. You need perimeter help for sure. Right. But I still do think you can win a championship with your center being your best player.
But if my big man is giving me 30 and 10, I can't be mad at a 30 and 10. Like,
no, and it's not his fault.
I can't call it empty just because the other guys didn't. You know what I mean?
It's not. And Embiid, he affects the game on both sides of the court. He's a plus defender. He's a good shot blocker. He has every bag in the book, or every bag in the book. Or he has a deep bag on offense that he can go to. Every post move in the book, hit you with a jab step, hit you with a 3-point shot. I definitely would prefer Embiid to Simmons if I came down to what star am I going to keep.
Sure.
I'm keeping Embiid. I think he can be your main piece and still win a title. He just needs another perimeter help.
But what's the value on Simmons after leaving the bubble for a surgery? Honestly, like,
as long as you can assure that it's not a long-term injury, I think the upside on Simmons, not really the upside, but
he came into the league with injuries.
I think the value on Simmons is still there. He's going to eventually garner a max contract just based on, where the perception of him in the league and this and that. He's going to be one of those guys that asks for a max contract. So I don't know if you give him one with whatever team he ends up on, but I think you can trade him this offseason and maybe get some good value for him. But I just don't see the Simmons and Embiid pairing
that's not going to work.
Working for a championship. So just to end off the Sixers talk, do you think either of the stars that they have right now with Simmons and Embiid, do you think that a team can win a title with either one of them as the integral part in their team? Or as an integral part, maybe the one or the two, not necessarily the number one option?
And somebody said that Embiid is a 2. Embiid is a good number 2. Like, he's a number 2 on a team. I still think that he could be a number 1 just with a shooter as his number 2. As far as Simmons, man, until he gets a jumper, I think that, like, that's just not the game for guards anymore. Like, you're just so far behind when teams have no respect for your jump shot. Embiid has a better shot than Simmons. So, like, give me the big man that can kind of stretch the floor and can even put it on the floor at times. Yeah, it might not be as effective when Simmons is in the game because his guy's just standing at the free throw line waiting to help. So Simmons has got to go. I don't know what they could get for him. Honestly, I don't know what the move would be or who they would even be targeting. But you got to keep Embiid.
Embiid needs his Kobe. He needs his Kobe, just like Shaq needed Kobe to get some pressure off his back. Embiid's the best
big man in the league. So why? Like, how are you going to trade him? Honestly, like, how are you going to trade him?
And, it's just sad because the Sixers spent 3 to 4 years tanking. A guy lost his job, the GM, before they brought in, I'm blanking out on the guy that they just brought in. But Eldon Brown, yeah, exactly. He's reaping the benefits, I guess, of the tanking, but he locked up all of the money. He's not
reaping anything, bro. It's all falling on him.
He locked up the money with the contracts to Horford and the contract to Tobias Harris. Oh my gosh, it's crazy that and again, I like Tobias Harris. I think he's a good person. He's a good Instagram follow, but I just don't see him as a main contributor on the team.
He's a number 3.
He's not a plus 3-point shooter. He takes a lot of mid-range shots. He can drive to the basket pretty good, but averaging 9 points or something like that, or whatever you were bringing up, that's inexcusable for a guy that's getting paid $25+ million a year. But that's it. That's all that I really wanted to talk about with the Sixers. So just to wrap up the playoff talk, we've already had multiple teams or multiple series go too deep in terms of the games, with the Rockets getting their second game, the Heat getting their second game today to go up 2-0 each respectively. And I think the Bucks are about to tie this series up at 1-1. So
they're up 11 with 5 minutes left. So
I'll ask you, Ben, do you have any changes to your predictions prior to the bubble? I think you had the Clippers and the Raptors coming out, or did you have the Clippers and the Heat? I can't remember.
I had the Heat.
Okay. And I had the Clippers and the Celtics coming out, which I flopped when we had Joby on the podcast. After watching a couple of games in the bubble, I flipped my pick to the Raptors. I think the Raptors are going to come out of the bubble, but I definitely think the top 2 teams in the East right now, or at least from what I've seen, are the Celtics and the Raptors. I think both those teams are probably playing the best ball, but the sad thing about that is they're going to eliminate one, or they're going to play each other in the second round. So it's going to be Raptors and Celtics unless something crazy happens in each of the series. Matching up in the second round. So I got the Raptors still coming out, going with their championship pedigree. I think they have more of a post presence than the Celtics do, and I think they're going to end up winning that second round. And I'm going to stick with the Clippers, although I'm not very confident. I can see the Mavericks beating them. That's why I say that's going to be a 7-game series. But I think the Terminator and Kawhi is going to come out, and he's going to take control of the series eventually.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna keep it the same from the East. I like what I've seen from the Heat. I know they're playing a banged up Indiana team, missing Sabonis, but they're gonna match up against the Bucks, and I don't like what I've seen from the Bucks. I like what Miami has, so I like them to come out of the East. And in the West, I am gonna switch my pick, man. I like what I've seen from my boys. And I'm hoping that the Mavs are going to eliminate the Clippers, and I have the Rockets coming out of the West. I like the bubble.
Okay.
The bubble.
No worry to the Russell Westbrook injury. You're not worried about that.
Oh, he's going to be rested up for the Lakers. We're not even going to bring him off the shelf for the Thunder anymore. It's 2-0. Hey Russ, rest up. We brought you over here to take down the big dogs because Harden needs help against the big dogs, and you're going to be rested for that second round. And like I said, if we match up with the Clippers, man, I still have to favor the Clippers just because they can small ball. They can small ball with us. If Montrez is at the 5 against PJ Tucker or Covington or Jeff Green, whoever it may be, he's big enough to where he could dominate them with his energy and his activity and the dogs.
He's a monster on the offensive boards.
He's
a monster.
And even Zubac has been playing decent, but defensively, the Clippers just look so damn lost, bro, that I don't know, man. I feel like the Rockets, if they're hit right now, I mean, we're doing work without Russ. Harden played like shit. We won by double digits. I think the no fans helps jump shooting teams, and we're a team that relies on jump shooting. So I'm changing my pick for the West, and I like the Rockets to come out and play the Heat.
Okay, all right. I like that. I'm not calling you a homer. I'm not going to call you a homer either because I do think the Rockets have looked good, and depending on their second round matchup, they're going up against arguably two shaky teams in the Clippers and the Lakers, depending how they each finish off their respective series. But just not to leave anybody out and not to miss on anything, we've talked about the Bucks series, the Raptors series, the Celtics series, and the Heat series. So we've covered everything in the East, but the one series that we have not mentioned in the West, and we can just go over it real quickly because it's tied at 1-1, and I think it's an interesting matchup. It's the Nuggets and the Jazz. Who do you think is going to come out of that? I hate the Jazz. I'm not a Utah Jazz fan at all. Haven't liked them since Karl Malone and John Stockton. Sure. I was a Michael Jordan fan, so I've never liked the Jazz. Respect them, but never liked them. I think they're going to beat the Nuggets in the series.
Well, they're getting Mike Conley back tomorrow. Supposedly he's going to be playing tomorrow. Man, I couldn't believe Donovan Mitchell went for 54 in that game 1. Honestly, look at that guy. I mean, he was like a number 11 pick or 12 pick.
Yeah, he's a lottery pick.
Lottery pick, but at the tail end, bro. So, there's hope when you're those teams that have 10 through 14 as well. You just got to find the right guy. And they still lost that game. We saw Jamal Murray and him put on a fucking clinic. That game was awesome. It was the first playoff game, right? It kicked off the playoffs. It went into overtime.
That was a great game.
It was dope. Jamal Murray took over in overtime. But yeah, and game 2 without Conley, the Jazz battled back and tied it. I think the Nuggets are missing players. Morris and Will Barton.
Gary Harris.
Harris and Will Barton as well are both injured guys that would be playing. They're usually a pretty deep team. Porter, if he's giving you offense, he's a plus. If he's not, he's got to be on the bench. Yeah, he's got to be on the bench because of his defense. But it's going to be, man. I had the Nuggets in 6, and I think that I'll go with the Nuggets in 7. I think that these teams are going to be going back and forth. I think the Nuggets will win tomorrow, and it'll be 2-1 Nuggets. But I think Nuggets in 7.
I think 2 things here for me is you mentioned Jamal Murray. I still think he's a little inconsistent in the playoffs. He has one good game and then an off game. I don't think his game 2 matched his game 1 or was even close.
Not at all.
It was shades of the series versus the Spurs last year. And he's truly the engine that keeps the Nuggets going. He takes them over the top. If you get a good game from Jamal Murray and everything else is there, you're more than likely going to win your game. But
he hits difficult shots, man. He hits difficult shots.
He loves taking those shots. He loves taking those shots. Ever since he was at Kentucky, he would take those step backs, whatever. He has every shot in the book.
But if he's not on, if he's not on,
he has
he's not much of like, I don't think that he lacks playmaking as far as setting people up. Yeah. I believe that they rely on Jokic for that.
And that's a little backwards because Jokic is your center, Jamal Murray's your point guard, but he's more of a shot creator, shot getter. And the second thing, and as much as this pains me to say, and this is just off of what I've watched, just my eyes, Rudy Gobert tips the scale a little bit for me. Just because he gives them so much, those layups that you make against most teams, you're not making them against the Jazz because Rudy Gobert is a great defender. I know I talked crap about him. I love talking crap about him, but he's probably the best defensive center in the league. I don't think there's any question about that.
The game one, Jokic tried that little hook over Gobert, and he made him change the shot, and it was uncomfortable, and it had no chance, bro. Like, it was good defense, and all he did was have his arms up. So you're right, the guy's pretty cringe, but as far as a defensive player, I mean, hasn't he won a defensive player of the year?
Yes. He has, and deservedly so.
Another guy who was in that 2013 draft. He was in that 2013 draft. Number 21 or 22 pick overall.
And he came out of France, right? Just straight out of France? Okay. So Ben is sticking with the Nuggets, but he's pushing his prediction from 6 to 7 games, and I'm going with the Jazz. I'm going to call it a 7-game series also. But
I will say the Jazz did a damn good job tanking to not match up with the Rockets. Because they knew that it worked out for them. It was clear that they did that, but it worked out for them.
All right.
Hey, bro, Gobert got drafted by the Nuggets.
Oh shit! How did he end up on the Jazz? Does it say?
By trade. 1 pick before the Spurs.
Damn, that's horrible. Don't bring that up.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's the NBA talk for today. We talked about some little quick hitters, the playoff update with the Lakers and Clippers.
Well, we're going to try and go live, hopefully, for some meaningful playoff game, whether it maybe sometime Sunday. We'll see what's up.
Hell yeah. All right, well, Ben just picked the Rockets to win the championship, so doesn't get wilder than that. You don't want to say they're going to win it?
Well, hold on. Let me see who they're going to be playing, bro. It's all about matchups, man. I'm not trying to be a homer. I'm trying to be realistic. But I like what I've seen. And I mean, who's going to argue that we haven't been impressive in the first 2 playoff games? Hey, nobody can tell me nothing right now. So, fuck it. I'm going to let my whole clip out.
Hey, let's save some for the second round.
Hey, look, listen. I'm praying. Imagine, like, we're going to be hitting 23s a game, and the Lakers are going to be at 5. Fam. And if Anthony Davis is going to be settling, LeBron will be finishing at the rim a lot more. I will say that right now with Whiteside, like we said, Whiteside was big, but bro, come on, bro. Ain't nobody going to guard Harden. If they can't guard Lillard, they're not going to guard Harden either. It's going to be the same thing. And one thing about the Thunder haven't been doubling Harden. Today they got Lou Dort back, and he actually did a pretty good job. Because Harden had too good of a game. Yeah, Harden had a shitty game. Two Arizona State Sun Devils going at it there, but yeah, man, the playoffs they're gonna be interesting. They're gonna be interesting.
Well, one thing's for sure, we're gonna keep on talking about it. That's for sure.
Because we talk about sports.
Well, unfortunately, the NFL preseason was canceled a couple of weeks ago. To avoid, players contracting the coronavirus prior to the start of the NFL season. But these past few weeks, we've gotten a lot of NFL news in the way of, training camp and what's been going on. This is a podcast that's based out of Texas, so I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the Dallas Cowboys in this little update. And it's typical Cowboy news, players getting hyped after, just... Hype. A little preseason hype, getting the media train going. And this player, I laughed when I read the headline, was Aldon Smith getting serious hype after a 5-year layoff from the NFL. Quote unquote, he's a monster. So my first reaction to this is I'm not putting any stock on any preseason hype, especially for a guy who's been absent from the NFL for not 1 year. Michael Vick was gone for 2 years in jail. He's been out for 5 years. For 5 years, he hasn't played since I think that short stint that he had with the Raiders, and then he got popped for marijuana or whatever it was. I can't remember with Aldon Smith now. Yeah. There's been so many things with him. What do you think of this, Ben? Do you think this is just nothing else to talk about?
It is a reaction to the big injury that you all had happen with Gerald McCoy going down, another interior lineman that was probably going to be a starter for the Cowboys, I would say, right?
Yeah, he was going to be a starter. But I will say the Cowboys were planning on attacking the defensive line with depth. So they have a bunch of guys. They signed Dontari Poe. They drafted that gentleman out of Oklahoma. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But they have depth.
But what I'm saying is, like, one guy goes down, time to hype up the next guy. Somebody, next man up.
True.
This is what this seems like to me. It just seems like, okay, let's not all be sad and mourn the loss of Gerald McCoy, a guy who most Cowboys fans had high hopes for that defense.
True.
To clog up the running game and even get some sacks. But let's get them hype about Aldon Smith. But fam, that ain't the guy to get people hyped up about. That's the guy who has let people down year after year due to personal reasons. Battles that he's fighting outside of the football field. So I don't like that they're putting pressure on Aldon Smith. And I think it's a guy who doesn't need pressure. He needs to be coming in playing like it's house money because you got him on the low. And now there's expectations, like there's hype. He's a monster. Like, well, shit, what's going to happen if he doesn't play like a monster? How's he going to be feeling if he doesn't play like a monster? So
That's true.
I see it as a reaction to the Gerald McCoy news, but they should have just picked a different guy, not the guy who's been out for 5 years and is trying to make a comeback in the league. Don't put the hype on that guy.
And I will say, the Cowboys have a penchant for signing these kind of guys. They had Rolando McClain, who they scooped up from the Raiders, Greg Hardy, Pac-Man Jones, who actually kind of worked out for the Cowboys, but I don't know. I'm not putting too much stock into this. I want to see Aldon Smith record a sack first before I start getting hyped about him. But definitely can see him as potentially being a third down rusher coming off the edge for you at the very least, playing one down a series, third down, a passing down at that. So like third and longer, he's in there just rushing the quarterback. I can see that. But for this article or this headline to come out the way that it did, no thank you. I'm just not buying into it, especially for a guy that's been gone for 5 years. And hopefully,
maybe if that was preseason and like we were seeing, it would be like week 2 of preseason right now. So maybe if he had gotten a sack week 1, yeah, all right, write the article. But not just because what? Because he's doing good in drills at practice without pads, because they only have a certain amount of practices with pads before the season. Like it's not it, it's
just to speak about what you said with the Cowboys getting him on the low. So they really did give him a low risk contract. So he only gets paid I'm saying only, but in terms of relative to NFL contracts,
right,
he's getting paid $440,000 if he gets cut before the season starts. If he makes the final roster, he'll earn another $910,000 in base salary, plus another $40,000 for every game that he plays, which is a total of $650 for all 16 games, and plus some sack incentives. So he can earn up to $2 million if he reaches 14 sacks.
Damn.
So yeah, it's very low risk.
They set the goals high.
They set the goals high. He gets $500,000 for 8, $1 million for 10, or 1.5 for 2. So I think it's a low risk contract for the Cowboys, and it's a prove it contract for Aldon Smith. I'm surprised he even got the chance to do it.
But, you're right.
But when you're walking around at his height and weight, and you rush the passer the way that he did prior to leaving the league, you're always kind of going to get a chance until you've run out of them. But keeping it on the preseason hype train, this is one thing that's been talked about There's kind of been a negative possibly to the offense that is formed down in Tampa Bay. You know, the much talked about Tom Brady moving to Tampa, leaving New England, pairing up with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, bringing back Rob Gronkowski. I think they got LaShawn McCoy to go over recently. So that offense is stacked. But the one negative that everybody has brought up is the perceived, and it's maybe not so much perceived because you can make the argument with statistics that Tom Brady hasn't been pushing the ball down the field, but they're saying, hey, is Tom Brady's arm strength going to be there to get it to all these weapons? Well, somebody has an answer, and it's none other than Rob Gronkowski. Rob Gronkowski, he's boys with Tom Brady, obviously. They've won multiple rings together. He's paved a Hall of Fame career with Tom Brady throwing it to him, has come out and said that Tom Brady's arm has not fallen off at all, and that it's where it was at when he was playing with him in New England, and that NFL defenses should be scared. Are you buying into this, or do you think that this is all just some more preseason hype to get his guy confident? Not that Tom Brady needs any confidence.
Tom Brady doesn't need it, but if anybody's going to stick up for him, it's going to be Gronk. I mean, shit, the other guys don't know. They haven't played a game with him, so I wouldn't expect Mike Evans just off of practice. I think that it's a legit question. I don't have the answer. I think that in New England, he didn't have many players that he could push it down the field to.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's not like Drew Brees, who has the wide receivers and just can't get it there anymore. But Tom Brady had Cordell Patterson and what was that other short receiver he ended up with the Seahawks? Dorsett.
Philip Dorsett, yeah.
Philip Dorsett.
Yeah.
But those ain't the guys you're going to be throwing deep to, man. You need a bigger target to throw deep to, even at Gronk. So I do think that it's all smoke from Gronk. He's got to stick up for his boy, but I'm eager to find out. Shit.
Making a prediction. Making a prediction. Do you think?
I think that he is going to get the ball. He is going to get the ball to Mike Evans on deep balls and Chris Godwin on deep balls.
And you know Arians loves to push the ball down the field. He is the prototypical vertical
He's the Mike
vertical
D'Antoni
offense. Yeah. He likes to push the ball down the field, and Tom Brady is going to be asked to do so. And hey, I still had Tom Brady in my top 5, so I can't bail on him before the season got started. So I'm going to say that his arm strength is going to be there, and that he's going to have a pretty good year in 2020 or 2009. Yeah, 2020. So I don't think he's going to hold the offense back at all. He has plenty of receivers to throw to, which leads us to our next conversation, sticking with the wide receiver position. Dez Bryant, another former Cowboy. Throw up the X, one of my favorite Cowboy. And I'm biased. I'm already going to say it before I get into the topic.
I liked him.
I loved Dez Bryant, Lufkin, Texas, put up numbers at Lufkin High School. Then went to Oklahoma State, put up some more numbers, and ended up being a first-round draft pick for the Cowboys. I believe he was the first wide receiver drafted in the first round since Michael Irvin, if I'm not mistaken, for the Cowboys. Yeah. So it was a pretty big deal when they drafted him. He's always in the media. He's one of those personalities that, he has a perception around him that he can't be in a locker room, although if you ask any teammates,
he's got fans.
And he's got fans too that'll stick up for him and cape for him, like myself. So I don't buy into those the media fodder that calls him a bad teammate. But nonetheless, he has battled, his age. He's getting up there. He's already 32 years old in November, so he's 31 right now. And we all know the wide receiver position is probably the deepest in the NFL. And he's coming off of an Achilles injury. He got signed by the Saints last year before he even got to play a game. Busted his Achilles, and he's been on the recovery ever since. I follow him on Instagram. He's constantly working out. He's constantly out there on the field running routes, trying to get better and showcase his talents. He recently got a contract, or not a contract, but a tryout with the Ravens. A workout with the Ravens. And it is word that he's leaving the workout without a contract. Now, the Ravens, they've been pretty adamant about trying to look for another piece, whether it's Antonio Brown.
AB, yeah, you're right.
Worked out AB, worked out Bryant. But both left without contract, or both are without contracts right now. But since we're talking about Dez, do we think that 2020 will be the year that Des Bryant steps back on the football field, if at all.
No, I think Dez is done. Dez got to hang it up, man. I think that had he gotten to some playing time with the Saints, I think that he would have had a resurgence. I'm not saying he would have gotten a rowdy deal or anything, but I'm saying he would have been able to stick around because that was an offense that he could have done well in. It's unfortunate that he got the Achilles injury, and honestly, people don't really come back for that. And as a receiver, you got to be making quick cuts, quick feet. Like, he was never the quickest guy either.
No,
he was just
never a burner.
He was just a bigger guy. But yeah, man, it sucks for him. I like the dude, but honestly, I think that his time in the NFL is done. Do you think that it's Lamar that's asking for the Ravens to work these guys out?
I think so. I think a lot of this is a push from Lamar Jackson, and
that's what it seems like to me too.
There might be a push from him, but I also do think that management sees that they're probably one offensive piece away from being like complete. Like right now, their number one receiver is either arguably Mark Andrews or Marquise Brown. I would like to see them pair Brown and Andrews with another potential stud receiver. Willie Snead, is he still there? Yeah, okay, he's
but
there.
I mean, he's not the best guy either.
So yeah, the receiving core needs a little bit of help down in Baltimore. So hopefully Des Bryant gets signed with the Ravens. I'm going to be on the opposite side of what you just said. I think he is going to play this year. I'm admitting that with a little bit of bias because, like I just said, he was my favorite Cowboy player when he got drafted. I still have his jersey in my closet, so I can't deny any of that. But I will say the one thing that works in Des Bryant's favor is the coronavirus and the fact that a lot of these teams are having trouble seeing guys.
In his favor, though.
I think they're having trouble seeing guys, and they're going to be apt to stick with a quote-unquote known commodity. You know what Des Bryant can potentially bring you versus maybe bringing in somebody that hasn't proven it yet.
Roland, real quick, I'm just going to read these as they come off, but with the 14th pick, the Boston Celtics, the 13th pick in the lottery, the New Orleans Pelicans, the 12th pick in the lottery, the Sacramento Kings, the 11th pick in the lottery, the San Antonio Spurs.
Nice. Okay, so not top 10, but
the
not 14.
10th pick in the lottery, the Phoenix Suns, the Bubble Suns with the 10th pick. Number 9 pick, the Washington Wizards at 9. And now they're kind of slowing down because they're getting closer to like top 5. Damn it, boy. With the number 8 pick, the Knicks, bro.
Oh, my God.
8.
The Knicks are stuck in hell.
Oh,
they're stuck in basketball hell. They're stuck in basketball hell.
Brother. With the number
well, hopefully
7,
they run through those.
With the number 7 pick, the Detroit Pistons.
Okay. So the Warriors still haven't been called yet.
No, the Warriors are going to be top 5 for sure. I mean, they were the worst record in the Atlanta Hawks at number 6.
Okay.
Still another young guy that they could put with Capella and fucking the point guard, Trae Young. Number 5, the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Jonathan Collins.
Dan Gilbert getting number 5.
Mm-hmm. Man, the Cavs have been in the lottery like every year since LeBron left.
Yeah, so
like,
now they did a little pause, bro, but I just wanted to just keep us updated.
Yeah, for sure.
The Hornets are in, the Bulls are in, the Warriors are still in, the Timberwolves are still in, and I believe that's it. Those are the last 4.
All right, well, update us when we get to the top 3 because I don't have it playing, but we just talked about Dez trying out for the Ravens, and as you guys know, the first couple of podcasts that we started off with, the sports scene was pretty slow. There wasn't a lot going on. We were still waiting for the decisions on the NBA, MLB seasons. So we started doing some schedule breakdowns for respective NFL teams. We covered teams like the Seahawks. We covered the Texans. We've covered the Packers. We've covered the Broncos, to name a few. And we're going to pick it back up this week. Not necessarily going through the schedule breakdown, but we are going to introduce a team. We're trying to knock out as many as we can before the start of the NFL season. So maybe next week we'll have 2 teams instead of 1, but we decided to pick it back up this week, and we're sticking with none other than the Baltimore Ravens, who I think surprised a lot of people last year with the record that they put out. They put out a 14-2 record. They were dominating teams. They only had maybe one game that was decided by 3 points or less. The rest of their victories were by 6 points or more. They lost in back-to-back weeks. That week 4 was that matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs that everybody was waiting for. But after that, they won 12 in a row. They made the divisional round. They got that first round bye, and then they got kind of dominated by the Titans. They really didn't have an answer for Derrick Henry in that game, and Lamar Jackson
get off the field.
Bottled up.
They get off the field.
And that's the infamous Earl Thomas game, or no, Earl Thomas getting stiff armed by Derrick Henry and becoming a meme.
Turned him into a lead block.
So I mean, with the Baltimore Ravens, what you have here is a team that went 14-2 last year. They have the MVP. Ben's number 2 quarterback in the league right now, Lamar Jackson, and he's in a lot of people's top 5.
The players actually voted, and he was actually number 1 for the players.
Yeah, I
saw the players did the rankings. So, hey, man, I was kind of.
Yeah, you're on.
Then again, Russell Wilson was 2, and Patrick Mahomes was 4, which was a little weird. Like, I don't know. You know, even in the NBA, the players tend to vote for MVP, and it's usually different than what the media gives. But that was interesting that the players said Lamar was number 1.
I was surprised Mahomes wasn't the number 1 player in the league as voted on by the players. But I can see the argument for Lamar Jackson because he's just running back and a quarterback. I mean, you're getting 1,000+ yards from him as a runner, and you're getting 3,000+ as a quarterback. So
the highlight reel doesn't get better than Lamar.
Yeah, exactly. So props to Lamar Jackson. You have a team that has a stacked roster. They got better in the offseason with signings like Calais Campbell. They got Derek Wolfe, both on the defensive line. They shored up the offensive line with DJ Fluker. And then they arguably had one of the better drafts in the league this year. They started off by drafting Patrick Queen out of LSU linebacker, can't go wrong there.
Nope.
And then my favorite pick from them was J.K. Dobbins in the second round as a running back. So they're going to pair him with Mark Ingram. That's going to be a nice little pairing.
Hell yeah.
They drafted a DT out of A&M, Justin Madubuki. I can't pronounce his name properly. And then their receiving core, even though we were just talking about it needing maybe another push.
They're still looking. They're still looking, though.
They drafted Devin Duvernay, and I know you're a big Duvernay guy because you're a Texas fan.
Yeah.
They got him in the 3rd round, and he's a burner. So I like him to take the top off of a defense out of the slot position.
I think that they need a big target, though. That's what they're lacking is like a big, number 1, like a guy that you can just go to for that first down on 3rd and 5, whatever it may be. Doesn't have to be a drag route or a slant like all the other guys. Like, just a guy that you can go to. But at least they know that they need that, and they're actively looking for it. Whether it's working out AB, whether it's working out Dez, whoever it may be. That's all you can ask for your team. I mean, if they see the problem as well, like, hey, at least they're not satisfied.
They're actively trying to get better, for sure. Yeah. And, they really didn't have a lot of losses in the offseason. They lost Michael Pierce, Seth Roberts, who's a receiver for them. They did lose Tony Jefferson, who's a pretty good safety, as well as Brandon Carr, which I'm surprised he's still in the league, but seems to be getting contract after contract. So shout out to Brandon Carr. I don't know where he ended up, but he's not on the team anymore. Their over-under, as set by Las Vegas, is at 11.5 this year. That's a pretty steep number. Their regular season games are highlighted by Week 2 matchup against the Texans, Week 3 matchup versus the Chiefs. Let's see what else here sticks out to me. They play the Patriots in Week 10.
They play the Cowboys division.
They play the Cowboys in Week 13. So those are some pretty high-level matchups for them. I personally
think that Titans rematch.
Oh, shit. Let me see. Where is that?
Right before the Steelers. That's a tough little stretch. Oh, yeah. Patriots, Titans, Steelers, Cowboys.
I don't know if they're going to get to 11.5. Just looking at their schedule, I have them slotted anywhere from 10 to 12 games. I just think they have a strong roster, They didn't lose much. They arguably got better. And what happens if Lamar Jackson takes another step and becomes a more refined passer? I think he surprised a lot of people, but there was also the thing that people were throwing out there, the detractors were saying that, hey, he was throwing the ball to wide open guys. Like, he was hitting guys that didn't have
For sure.
a defender around him for 5 yards. Let's see what happens when he has to, put the in a tight window. Is he capable of doing that? So Lamar Jackson, he's your boy. You had him at number 2.
Yeah.
How do you think he's going to lead this team this year?
I'm gonna go over. I mean, he plays that Giants, Cowboys, Eagles, and Redskins division. That's 4 wins, just off the top.
Oh, there, buddy.
Come on, bro. What do you see?
Versus the Cowboys is a toss-up.
Come on, bro.
Toss-up.
I'm not even giving us the game against the Ravens. Like,
I'm not giving anybody that game. I'm saying it's a toss-up.
But they play the Bengals twice. They play the Giants, the Redskins. That they're gonna go over
Washington
10.
football team.
Yeah, the Washington football team. Honestly, though, they only got better, though, man. They shored up the defense. Like you said, they didn't lose much. Lamar has another year. The thing is, there is another year of tape out on him, a full year of tape. Teams are definitely going to be they were already scheming against Lamar, but now they're obviously tried something, and they're going to have to switch it up and try different things. Their division games with the Steelers are always tough. I know the Browns beat them down last year actually once pretty good early in the season. So I still have them getting 11, 12 wins for sure. You said the number was 10.5?
11.5.
Oh, 11.5. Out of 11.5. I'm going to go over because I have them having a first round bye. If they're going to have a first round bye, they're going to need over 11.5 wins. Okay. So I got the Ravens going over 11.5.
Just because I'm not a fan of the number, I'm going to go with the under. I think I'm going to have them slot, like I said, anywhere from 10 to 12 games. And the reason why I'm still kind of confident in them getting to the 11 and maybe the 12th win is the fact that I don't see where the regression comes for this team unless Lamar Jackson takes a step back.
Right.
And I don't think that's going to happen. I think he's going to continue progressing. So, yeah, I think the sky's the limit for this team. And I'm going to go out on a limb here, even though I don't have them getting to the over. And it's just more for the math and the number there at the 11.5 that I'm not confident in taking. They're my Super Bowl representative from the AFC. I think they're going to get through the AFC.
What amount of wins do you think it takes to get the bye? Now they're only being 1.
That's true. It's going to have to be no less than 12 because I don't see the Chiefs going any less than 12-4 this year.
Yeah.
So, but I'm going to go with the Ravens because I think their defense is going to tip the scale in that matchup against the Chiefs this year.
All right.
And so that really wraps up the Baltimore Ravens talk. I just wanted to introduce them, talk about some of their key additions, key losses, as well as introduce the Vegas win total because we always like to keep track of that. And if we place a personal bet,
the measuring stick.
Yeah, the measuring stick for their quote potential or what we are thinking for them, expectations for them this year is kind of set on that number. So pretty high mark to get to, a lot of expectations to fill considering the fact that they did go 14-2 last year. But hey, we're already past that point with this Baltimore Ravens team. The true growth that we're going to see from them is in the playoffs. And that's where it needs to come. You can't have that performance against the Titans where they came out and said that they really weren't taking them seriously or they thought they had it in the bag. I know Lamar Jackson came out and said something to that effect. So they're going to be a year older.
With one game, that's crazy. Like with one game, winner, loser go home. Like that's wild. If it was a series, I could understand that. But in a one game, loser go home. That's a wild, wild attitude to take into a game. I know you had the first round bye. You were cruising. The Titans weren't the best, but damn, to not even take them serious. And it's one game before the AFC title game. You have never won a playoff game before. That's not really what you want to hear. But, hey, they'll learn from that because they were the butt of a lot of people's jokes last year in the playoffs.
Exactly. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt on that one and say that they were, a young team in that position for the first time. Although they have some veterans on that team that shouldn't have allowed that. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt anyways because I like Harbaugh as well, Super Bowl caliber coach. So, yeah, give me the Baltimore Ravens to make the Super Bowl out of the AFC. And that wraps up the NFL talk for this week. Next week, I do want to introduce the Dallas Cowboys. I know we talked about them a little bit, but I do want to spend some time on them next week. So be on the lookout for that.
And
we might have a special guest.
Just to finish off the lottery, the Bulls got the number 4 pick. The Hornets got the number 3 pick. The Warriors got the number 2 pick. And the Timberwolves got the number 1 pick. So,
Damn, I don't even know what the Timberwolves are going to do with that pick. I mean, they have some potential.
LaMelo and
D'Angelo Russell and Cat.
Russell with Cat. They're not going to draft another big man to go with Cat. So the big guy is out of the question.
So you think it's going to be one of the guards, R.J. Hampton, LaMelo Ball, Anthony Edwards out of Georgia. Any one of those guys might go number 1. But I wouldn't want to end up on the Timberwolves team. But although things might change for them because I know that team is up for sale. I know Kevin Garnett is the face of a group that's trying to purchase the team. So who knows what happens to the Timberwolves in the near future. But yeah, thanks for that, Ben. Appreciate that. Keeping us updated with the lottery.
Watch Bombs live podcast for you cool without cable and that don't.
Yeah, in case any of you guys didn't watch the lottery going on tonight, you'll get that update with this podcast. So yeah, that's it for the NFL though, and like I said, be on the lookout for a special guest and maybe some Cowboys talk next week.
For sure. All right, man. Well, let's finish off. Let's finish off the podcast with some MMA talk. Like we said, we had that big pay-per-view last week. The DC retirement fight. Seems like he's followed through with it afterwards, even though taking the loss. To me, pretty odd for a guy as competitive as him to retire off back-to-back losses. Usually, you want to ride off into the sunset on a win. To leave after 2 losses is pretty weird, but he said he only fights for belts. Off of 2 losses, you're not going to get a title fight. So that he's done. And I mean, I think that's pretty cool that he knows when to walk away and that he can walk away as to where a lot of fighters are pushing it. But, you know, I had DC winning for our contest, but I couldn't argue with the scorecards, man. I thought that he pretty much I thought he won 2 rounds, not just 1, but Stipe was definitely the winner of that fight. What did you think?
I agree 100% on both points. I do think it's a little weird that he is retiring off of back-to-back fights. But if you remember when he first brought up retirement, that was supposed to happen months ago. The retirement kind of got pushed back a little bit. So I'm not that surprised because DC seems like he's a guy that's a man of his word. If he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And like you said, he only fights for belts, and you don't get championship fights after losing twice in a row. I could have seen him sticking around because there was a rumor that the winner of this fight was going to be, quote unquote, awarded a John Jones fight, which we might talk about a little bit later. But now that incentive's not there for him, DC has his future set out for him no matter what. Like, he has the best MMA podcast with Ariel Helwani. He's one of my favorite color commentators for the UFC and their pay-per-views. And he also does the ESPN detail for the MMA. So he's set, and he's a high school coach. Yeah, exactly. He's completely set. His legacy in the sport is set. Olympic medalist. Was he a bronze or a gold medalist?
Yeah, bronze.
I can't remember. Bronze medalist. Champ. No matter what you have to say about how he got it, and you can't take that away from his legacy. So put him. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer for me, no doubt.
Yeah, I think that this year, I believe it's a GSP going into the Hall of Fame. He's the one headlining the ballot, and I believe that next year in 2021 it'll be DC. But hey, man, on the other side of the coin, Stipe Miocic, the most dominant heavyweight of all time, bro, does it again. Underdog again, and the dude just fights through adversity and gets it done. It looks like he's got a fight with Ngannou, the rematch. Lined up next. We know that supposedly Ngannou wasn't training before the first fight because he was just knocking everybody out. He thought he was going to do the same thing to Stipe. It's going to be interesting. I know I've been saying that Ngannou is the next heavyweight champion. I still do believe that. And one thing that I will say about the fight is DC's belly was too big, man. Like the one takedown that he did get, he couldn't even transition because his stomach was just like it separated him so much with his little ass arms. Was his big ass, yeah. And Stipe came in looking in like phenomenal shape in the 230s, which was crazy, and it seemed to benefit him later in that fight. So, hats off to Stipe. I hope that he fights Ngannou before the end of the year, and once Ngannou gets that belt, I think that they're going to give John Jones that title fight before they give Stipe the Ngannou, third fight. So that's what I'm looking ahead to as far as the heavyweight division. In the other fight, the co-main event, the Sugar Show took a halt. Yep. Yeah. The hype train was halted, derailed, off the tracks, whatever you want to call it. And he wasn't too happy about it after. I saw one of his podcast clips today where he just sounded sour as fuck, bro. Like,
not a good look. Not a good look.
Not a good look. And I mean, bro, like, the guy hit you with one kick in the calf and your whole leg turned off. And I'm like, get in the weight room. I mean, I don't know. O'Malley did pop. We know that he sat out a little bit over a year due to a USADA suspension. But I mean, this is the second time it happens to him in a fight. Exact same thing. So, look, I don't want to call the guy frail because he's a UFC fighter and I'm not. But obviously that seems to be a problem. And I wouldn't call it lucky when, I mean, it's the second time it happens in 3 fights. I picked Cheeto for our contest. I've been a big fan of his. I'm happy that he was the one to derail this train. I feel like now he's more of a name. People at least know who he is because they were watching for O'Malley, but they saw Cheeto win. Might have rubbed some people the wrong way with the celebration afterwards. I thought it was warranted just because of how much shit O'Malley was talking.
Yeah, O'Malley was talking a lot of shit before the fight.
Yeah, so, I mean, I was happy with that outcome, but what did you think of the fight? Who did you have winning?
I had Sean O'Malley winning. I'm fairly impressed with his striking acumen. I think he's one of the better strikers in the division. I think his length gives a lot of people a lot of trouble. But at the same time, I'm also not on the side that I'm going to detract from Cheeto Vera and him getting that victory over Sean O'Malley. I think it was a well-deserved victory, especially for all of the crap that Sean O'Malley was talking before the fight. And the one thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and whether or not Sean O'Malley was right, but he came out on the Ariel Helwani show coming out and saying that Cheeto Vera should be thanking him for this opportunity, that he would not even be in a co-main of a pay-per-view fight if he wasn't fighting Sean O'Malley. And he followed it up after the loss, calling him a journeyman and calling him this and that and saying that, oh, he's going to win one, lose one, I'm going to be a champion, this and that. Well, look, man, you can still have that confidence. I'm glad you have that confidence, but the fact of the matter is Cheeto Vera was arguably your first true litmus test or barometer test to see where you're at truly. And whether or not you want to say you got injured and it was a fluke, you didn't pass the test, my friend. You would have passed the test if you won the fight. Whether or not it was a quick stoppage, which I'm on the side of, I do think it was a little bit of a quick stoppage. But
it was done, though. Like, what was he going to do?
Exactly. To Herb's point and to Herb's side is O'Malley was pretty much done at that point. His leg was shot and he was in a compromised position. But I don't think he was out or anything. I think he was still protecting himself. So that's where the argument comes in for the short stoppage. But
that's, Roland, that's where you give the young guy, I mean, you save some years of his career, bro.
For sure.
Like, I wanted the ref to stop it just when I saw his ankle kept rolling and rolling because his leg was like dead. He couldn't control it. And it's like, hey, bro, you can't fight like that. And Cheeto even noticed it and it was like, yeah, what's up? What's up? You know, we're going to stay standing.
Man. I'm not on the side of people getting mad at him for the victory. I think the people who were getting mad at him were all O'Malley stans. And O'Malley's a guy that he's either going to rub you the complete right way and you're going to be a diehard fan for him because of his bravado, the way he carries himself. He colors his hair. He's a weed smoker. He's all of these things that are attractive to the general public. Everybody loves him. But on the other side of things, I mean, I can find a lot of people that don't like him either as well. And it's a hit or miss with Sean O'Malley and his attitude. I had a friend, or we both had a friend who was saying that, hey, that's just his championship mindset. He's that type of guy that thinks like that all the time. But you also have to learn when to take your lickings and say, hey, I just got beat out there.
And it's like everybody can learn from McGregor, man, because he's the guy that talks the most shit. But after his losses, I mean, aside from the Khabib one, I would say that he's been pretty humble in his defeats. Whether it was to Diaz, he said, hey, you know what? He got me, but we're going to do it again or whatever. But for O'Malley to go out like this saying, oh, Chito, he was acting like he just won the lottery. Well, maybe he did, bro, because you were Dana's golden ticket. And he just fucked up your ride. Like, I mean, you can't be giving a guy shit like that. This dude started off his career 1-2. Now he has the most finishes in that division. Like, you can call him a journeyman, but I mean, now he's in the rankings. He didn't just last 1 week in the rankings like O'Malley did, because Chito took his spot right after he beat him. So show some respect. I don't think O'Malley's a championship fighter. I do think that he's a top 15 fighter. But like I said, man, he's got to get like no homo thicker. He's got to get some girth on him, bro, because if one kick is going to shut you off like that, and it's the second time it happens in 3 fights, like that, I mean, you might not be built for it. And I don't want to say that because he's willingly going in there, but if that's all it takes to put you out, like, fuck, it ain't going to be that tough when you're fighting the top of that division, is what I'll say.
For sure.
So, and the only other thing that I'll touch up on that fight was Merab fought Dodson, the Machine, and he pretty much handled him. Not too many takedowns, and even when he did take him down, he wasn't able to keep him down. But Sarah Longo, I mean, with Aljamain and Weidman and all those guys, they keep their little streak going. They keep winning. So, but that pretty much wraps up last week's card. Oh, Dariush, was Dariush on that card, or was that prior?
I think it was prior. Dariush, he took out. I was on the other side of that because of the nickname Hot Sauce or something.
Well, it wasn't this past podcast then, I guess. Okay. Well, then, yeah. And other news that we had was John Bones Jones relinquished his light heavyweight championship belt.
It's official.
Said, you know what? I've beaten everybody in this division except for Jan Blachowicz. I know nobody knows who Jan Blachowicz is, and I'm not going to explain who Jan Blachowicz is. So John Jones is leaving the light heavyweight division and going to the heavyweight division. He announced this a day or two after the loss, DC's loss to Stipe.
Perfect timing.
Yeah, perfect timing, exactly. Kind of to steal the spotlight. I think that he's just going to get the winner of Stipe and Ngannou. I don't think that they're going to skip him ahead of Ngannou. He said he's got to be putting some weight on. So he'll put some weight on, and then we'll see that fight happen. But I think it's going to be Ngannou against Jones. And, man, he better be ready to wrestle because Ngannou will put his lights out if they stand.
So, well, first, I just want to ask you, do you think there's any weight behind what Dominic Reyes was saying these past few days, that John Bones Jones is leaving as a smart decision because he's scared of the division, the light heavyweights, and what's happened to him in the last 2 fights against himself and Thiago Santos? Do you think he's just saying that, or do you think there's some weight behind that? Because
I mean, maybe he believes that. Maybe Dominic Reyes believes that. He's a pretty corny dude. He's a cornball. He is
corny. Yeah.
I could see him believing that, but if we just look at John Jones' track records and rematches, he finishes guys. He finished DC in the rematch. He finished Alexander Gustafsson in the rematch. Like, rematches don't go well for John Jones' opponents.
And to call John Jones scared of the division, I think is crazy, because he, other than John Blachowicz, he has fought and defeated everybody in that division, and pretty resoundingly so. I mean, you can make the argument that Dominic Reyes could have won that last fight, but as we all know, if it's a toss-up fight, it's more than likely going to go to the champion. And I mean, John, whether that's right or wrong, all I'm saying is John Jones has done everything that he can in the light heavyweight division. I'm not saying this as a John Jones stan. I'm just saying this as a fan of MMA and just looking at it. He's cleared out everybody. He's fought all the big names. He's made it clear over the past few months that, for lack of better words or phrases, he is money hungry. He is looking after those big fights. He wants those headliners. He wants to be earning $5 to $10 million a fight from now on. And the only way that you do that, I think, is in the heavyweight division. It's something new, something that people haven't seen before, going up against bigger guys, stronger guys. But I think John Jones is he's gonna end the year 2021 as the heavyweight champion. I think he's gonna add that to his resume, and he's probably gonna go down as the greatest combat fighter of all time.
Let's see if he can. And if he does win it, I hope he can defend it a couple times. Because I mean, DC won it, but he defended it once and lost it. Like Stipe defended it 4 times, and that wasn't most of any heavyweight. Now 5. So I hope that John Jones, if he does win the heavyweight title, I hope that he can have a run at heavyweight. You know what I mean?
So do you think he fights before a championship fight, or he's waiting on Ngannou and Stipe to finish up?
Transitioning, I don't think that he does, because top 5 guys just got booked. Derek Lewis against Curtis Blades, the fight that we were saying was going to get booked, that ended up getting booked. So that takes off those two top 5 guys. Then you got Stipe and Ngannou fighting each other. That's two more of the top 5 guys. That's 4 already gone. I don't even know who the 5th guy is, but there's nobody there for John Jones to fight. He has to be fighting for a title, or else if he loses, the allure's gone. He'll never fight for the heavyweight title. Yeah, maybe not never, but it would have to be a climb.
I think it's deservingly so, too. I think an auto championship shot is definitely warranted. I would just not skip Ngannou to give Jones a heavyweight championship fight.
No, for sure, you can't do that.
I would not do that. That would be so messed up, but I wouldn't put it past the UFC. I mean, but I don't know. I think Ngannou has been waiting. He's done what he's been asked to.
Take a little while to put the weight on, too. And like you said, Ngannou's waiting. He was just waiting for this fight to happen. I think he'll fight Stipe before the end of the year.
There we go. I hope that happens, because that's going to be a banger, honestly. Yeah. Somebody's lights are going out.
And just in other news, as soon as John Jones made the jump to heavyweight, somebody came out of retirement. Anthony Rumble Johnson.
Oh, that's right.
Said he's returning to 205. He's coming back to light heavyweight.
Oh, so shit. Really?
Dominic Reyes.
He's been looking pretty chunky in retirement.
Yeah, he has. But he's got weight to lose, I guess.
All right, and I know he's backed by Ali, so he's in pretty good hands. I'm sure he'll
have one top 5 fight, and then he'll be fighting for the belt, bro. That's just the way it's gonna go.
So, do you think he's gonna be fighting for a light heavyweight championship?
Oh yeah, if he wins his comeback fight, now that John Jones is gone, shit, fuck it. DC's gone too. Who's gonna wrestle him? Thiago Santos, Dominic Reyes? They're not gonna wrestle him.
Dang, man.
He's going to knock somebody's head out of the fucking octagon.
I hope he can. I like to
be a champ. By the end of 2021, Rumble might be a champion.
Okay. All right.
Yep. And with that, we'll transition to the contest standings. Last week, we picked 4 fights. One of them got canceled. It was 5, but we just did 4. So the standings are Roland Z, 43.7, Justin, 42.1, myself, 48.2, Josh, 33.75, Gabby, 40.7, Big John, 27.1, Mondo, 39.45, Roland G, 28.2, Izzy, 21, Diego, 36, Steven, 20.9, Rexa, 33.4, Jacob, 3, Mike Gonzalez, 6, Wally, 4, Gene, 6.6, Ron, 3, Leo Garcia, 8.35, Rick, 5, Gabe Gonzalez, 2.5. We had some new people join the contest. Bob still with 3, Rob Martinez with 4.5, Christian Rodriguez with 4.5, AJ Villarreal with 2, and Raul Torres with 2. So shit, awesome. It seems like we're about at like 20 people in the contest now. So yeah, we got four 4 months of fights left, and there's fights every single weekend from here on out. So we'll be picking a lot of fights. Unfortunately, this week the fight doesn't have much to offer. The card this week, it's headlined by Frankie the Answer Edgar against Pedro Munoz. Seems to be maybe a number 1 contender, or like I think the winner of this fight could possibly get a title shot, maybe have to win one more.
This is bantamweight, right?
Yeah. Pedro the Young Punisher Munoz. This is at bantamweight. Munoz is 18-4. Frankie Edgar 23-8-1. We know Frankie Edgar's a veteran, OG. Late in his career, dropping down in weight. Was the 55 champ, went to 45. Obviously fought Max and Aldo a couple of times, didn't get it done. Now going down to 35 to make a run. Doing it backwards in my eyes. Usually when you're younger, you start at the lower weights and then you go up. But he's cutting his weight for the first time, and he's coming in against a dude who likes to slug and has some knockout power for this division in Pedro Munoz. I think Frankie Edgar's going to have to wrestle. He's going to have to try and get Munoz down. Honestly, bro, I just think that he's done. Once Brian Ortega's knocking you out with uppercuts, fam, that's the point where maybe that's it. All the dehydration's only going to weaken his chin in my eyes to make this weight. So I got Pedro Munoz in the 2nd or 3rd round by KO in this fight.
Yeah, and Pedro's going to be fighting
2-1 favorite, Roland, just to give you the odds.
Okay, and Pedro's going to be fighting with some extra oomph with him this weekend after being left off of UFC 4. He's not really on the UFC 4 gaming roster. Yeah, and he was actually pretty pissed off about it. He's like, hey, I typically don't care about stuff like this, but I've been in the UFC since 2014. He's like, what the hell? How am I not included in this game? It's pretty messed up. And
I wasn't in it either. A lot of people aren't in that game.
And you hit on a lot of the main points as far as Edgar. He's going backwards in terms of his weight drop, and I think it's more out of necessity. He was consistently outsized, or he was undersized at lightweight at the 155 division. Had to eventually drop down to featherweight, where he got touched up. Lost to Aldo, Ortega, and Max Holloway, kind of like that. And then, he drops down to, what is he at now? Bantamweight, and he's going up against Pedro Munoz. And I think really the only route to victory for Edgar is, shooting, getting some takedowns, because if it stays standing, I think Munoz is going to put his lights out. So that's where I'm going with this fight. I'm not ready to say that his lights are going to go out, but I think Munoz is going to win this fight, and the UFC is going to have to start thinking about how to retire Frankie Edgar respectfully. And I love Frankie Edgar. He's a good guy. You follow him on social media. Straightforward guy, straight edge guy for all intents and purposes, good person. But I think he's about to turn 39 if he's not already. And we don't see too many fighters last that long. It's been great to have him around this long, but I think it's coming to an end.
Rolling with all the IG follows. I like it.
I got to.
But yeah, Frankie's going to have to grind out a win in over 5 rounds. I don't see it. I think maybe he loses this fight and then they start booking him accordingly. But yeah. And the other fight that we're going to pick, we're only going to pick the main event and the co-main event because this card just ain't it. It ain't it, Chief. It ain't it. But in the co-main event, we got Ovince St. Preux, 24-14. Coming in, fighting against Alonzo Menefield, 9-1. Menefield fights out of Fortis MMA in Dallas. His last fight, he fought Devin Clark, and it was like the first fight where he went out of the first round, or second round, I'm sorry, because all his fights have ended in the first or early in the first minute of the second round. But he actually went to a decision, and he was gassed. He was being taken down. I think that he can knock Ovince St. Preux out, but Ovince St. Preux, we know that he's crafty with all of those chokes. To get the chokes, you have to take people down. So you got to think that Ovince St. Preux is going to want to take Alonzo Menefield down. Menefield is coming in on short notice. I forget who Prue's original opponent was supposed to be, but I know that Menefield jumped in on 2 weeks short notice. Menefield is a short favorite. I think he's coming in around -140. I'm going to go with St. Preux, man. I think that he's going to get him down. I didn't like what I saw from Benefield on the ground his last fight against Clark. Clark wasn't able to get the sub, but he was able to control him on the ground. And I think that St. Preux is just too crafty on the ground, that he can sneak in that Von Flue choke and just add to his tally. So I'm going to go with the dog in the co-main.
That's where I'm going with this one. I think it's a little weird for me because St. Preux is kind of an odd fighter, but we recently saw him go up to the heavyweight division. He had a pretty weird fight against Ben Rothwell, but I mean, he almost came back and won that fight. I think
one and done though. He's back at 205.
Yeah, he's back at 205 for sure. But that means that he might be the bigger fighter here against Alonzo Menefield.
Menefield's jacked.
But the thing with Menefield is, I think he truly only has one route to victory, and that's an early knockout. If he doesn't get it, I think OSP is going to dominate the second and third rounds. And give me OSP by submission. I think he's going to end up taking this one out. I'm surprised it's lined this way. Quite frankly, I think this should be closer, if not having St. Preux as the favorite, because Menefield to me is still more of a prospect that we're trying to figure out what he truly has.
OSP's been in there with John Bones Jones, man.
Exactly, and Menefield is taking this on short notice.
Right.
What I'm reading.
That also goes to his cardio was a problem in the last fight. Mm-hmm. Now he's taking a fight on 2 weeks short notice.
You can't think that he's going to have much to offer outside of the first round.
Exactly. So yeah, Ovid St. Preux, I'm not so confident in picking him, man, because he's so hit or miss. But I'm gonna go with him for this one, and this pretty much wraps up MMA for us this week, bro. Okay. That's all we got for the UFC. Looking forward to those 2 fights this weekend. I probably won't see most of the card, but I will tune into those last 2. I know the Rockets and Thunder will be playing on Saturday as well, and we'll have playoff basketball. But what else do you have to watch this weekend?
Man, I'm a big soccer fan as of late. You know, all the domestic leagues kicked off, and I think have mainly all wrapped up. So the only thing that we have to look forward for as soccer fans is the big one, the Champions League final. It's going to take place on Sunday. I
believe it's at 1 or 2.
Yeah, PSG versus Bayern. You got Bayern as a short half-point favorite. The over/under is set at 3.5. And I'm going to be glued to that TV because you got 2 offensive teams. But if I were just given a pick out, it's tough for me because I love Kylian Mbappe and PSG, but I'm gonna go with Bayern, man. They're just too well oiled right now. They're clicking on all cylinders, and give me Bayern to win this game, and give me the over too. I see like a 4-2 game.
I agree. I see goals. I know Bayern beat the crap out of Barcelona. Beat the crap out of Barcelona. But even Barcelona had a lot of chances that they didn't finish on. Barcelona could have had 3 or 4 goals. They only ended up with 2. I expect Bayern to score at least 2 against PSG, and at least 2. Like I said, at least 2. And PSG, I expect them to score as well. Hopefully Mbappe will actually be able to play the full game instead of just being subbed in second half. I know our buddy Diego, big PSG fan. I got to ask him about that, but these last 2 games, Mbappe has been subbing in second half, so we'll see if they have him for the full game here in the final on Sunday. I know Elias Venegas is stopping by my house on Sunday, bringing some Franklin's barbecue from Austin.
Hell yeah.
I've never tried that. Yeah, we're gonna watch it here at the house.
Nice.
I'm
nice.
That's what's up. That. I got Bayern also.
Stuff?
I got Bayern. I expect goals.
Yeah, so Bayern in the over here for this podcast. And then obviously, I want to see what happens with the NBA playoffs, see if any of the changes or the predictions that we have stay true, or if there's some reversion on some of those, like with the Lakers and Clippers. So definitely looking forward to all the sports that's coming up. And even the NHL playoffs are heating up. So I'm looking forward to all of that stuff.
Right now, late in the first, there's 2:30 left. Lakers are up 23-17.
Okay, I'm about to turn that on as soon as we log off here. So
for sure.
I think that's all that we had to talk about today. I know recently, just to touch on this a little bit before we log off, because it is kind of a serious matter. The Washington football team, their head coach, Ron Rivera, has been diagnosed with lymph node cancer.
Oh, so is that like?
Yeah, I said that. What's that? Yeah, it just came out right now at 8 o'clock. It's about 8:30 right now, so about 20 minutes ago, Adam Schefter broke the news. But they're calling it early stage lymph node cancer, and it's very treatable and curable. So definitely, they caught it early, and prayers out to Ron Rivera. Seems like a good guy for all intents and purposes, and never want to see this kind of news. But on a good note, like they said, it's very treatable and curable, and they caught it early. So hate to end the podcast on a negative note like that, but like I said, they should be able to attack this in the proper way, and hopefully we get Ron Rivera in remission very soon, and he's not able to miss any, or he doesn't miss any time as a coach. So yeah, that's it. Unless Ben, you had anything else for the podcast?
Nah, bro. That's all I got. Right. Like I said, hopefully we'll go live maybe Sunday, if not Monday for one of the games. But that's all I got.
Yeah, there we go. All right, well, let's get to watching some of this playoff basketball. Talk to you guys next week.
For sure.
I like big butts and I kind that lie.
That mother brother can't do nah. When a girl walks in with an itty bitty bent and a big thing in your face, you get
sprung. No.
I'm supposed to be the franchise player, and we're in here talking about practice. I mean, listen, we talking about practice. Not a game. We talking about practice. Not a game.
Me. Bam, bam. Me, man.
Not a game.
Slap that like she scored 30.
We talking about sports. I mean, what we even talking about, man? We talking about sports here.